Good evening, Crimson Tide Nation, and we hope you have had a Merry Christmas, and we hope you have a very Happy New Year, because I can tell you right now, we had some yummy food, of course. It was awesome, and awesome gifts here and there, and, might as well need it, because, some people aren't looking forward to the ReliaQuest Bowl, but some people are, but, I know I'm looking forward to it, because we get revenge. But of course, I'm yours truly, Jackson Johnson. And there's my partner in crime, Jeffrey from Only Taught Sports, where he taught sports every single day, or at least he tries to. And he also taught Indiana football at Indiana at the Voice College Football, or at least he tries to. Go get that quote trademark one of these days. And I can tell you right now, it's going to be a wild ride with what's going on with Alabama football. And we take your calls. We don't care who you are. If you're an Alabama fan, non-Alabama fan, we don't care. We want to hear what you guys say. And we got a caller in the midst we will get to in just a little bit, and he's a very dear friend of the Voice College Football. Jeffrey, how have you been doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I hope everybody had a Merry Christmas. Like you said, a Happy New Year coming up as well. I definitely had a lot of fun this Christmas. It's always great to spend time with family and friends and eat some good food, man. Open a few gifts as well. But, definitely the true meaning of Christmas as well is what makes it awesome too. Definitely the gifts are great. Spending time with family is great, but definitely you can't forget about the true meaning as well. So definitely, as Linus would say, and Charlie Brown Christmas. Can't beat that either. It's always great to celebrate that. And, it's always, just kind of a time to unwind after a long year. It's been a very busy year as well, a fun year. But, just kind of needs some time to, kind of relax and, kind of get your feet back under you. And Christmas is always a time to do that. But just, again, like I said, spending time with family is awesome as well. So definitely enjoyed that. And now we're back to talking about Alabama football. And like you said, many people don't care about the ReliaQuest Bowl. And that's fair. I get that. But you know what? We do. We care. And Jalen Milroe playing in the game as well. It's not opting out, so that's good. And hopefully, like you said, can get some revenge on those Michigan Wolverines, despite the fact that not being nowhere near as good of a Michigan team. But it doesn't matter. Still, revenge is sweet. So hopefully that can happen. And we'll definitely be talking about that game, I'm sure, tonight as well. But like you said, we got a caller on the line, Dr. Buckeye. Definitely wanted to get to him and see what his thoughts are.
Let's hear his take. Sorry for waiting, good buddy.
Yes, how you doing, gentlemen? I missed DeReal tonight. With no appearance by DeReal tonight.
Well, he's talking with, I think he was talking with Adam Lamparello on the Rutgers show tonight.
Oh, okay. Well, so he actually talks to Big Ten people from time to time. Is that the thing?
Yeah. He has so much fun. And we got what's up from Kentech 615. Eric, thank you for tuning in to tonight's edition of the Call-In Show. I'll be featured on the Maze Madman show on Monday night with Eric and Maze Madman and friends discussing Alabama Michigan preview.
No, I was just going to say, is DeReal the fine bomb of the channel? Can we call DeReal the fine bomb of the channel? I don't know.
Well, the weekend
they're kind of two different vibes, but I see what you're going with there.
He's trying to carry the flag of the SEC. Let's be fair here. He's out there trying to do that.
How did you feel, Dr. Buckeye, when Feinbaum was like Indiana, didn't belong out there, right? They didn't belong on that field, and yet Indiana had the closest score of the 4 games.
Well, that was a little bit padded at the end, Jeffrey. Let's be fair. That was a little bit padded. I did want to say, well, first of all, I told Mark that game was kind of a slow burn. It's not like Notre Dame's going to go out and drop 55 points on anybody. They beat, like a blowout to them is like 27-10 or 27-6 or something like that, which kind of that game was. But I think we were right in breaking it down, Jeffrey. It came down to your offensive line and whether Rourke could have a really good day throwing the football, which he didn't. He was off on some throws. Even when he had pass protection, I don't think he looked great. And then obviously, could you guys contain the run on the defensive side of the ball? So, and, I just think that both sides, I think it just didn't work out well for you.
Mm-hmm.
Was that kind of your thoughts, or what was your overall view of the game? I didn't get a chance to hear what you had to say.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, to me, the early pick from Rourke. I mean, if he doesn't throw that pick and completes it to the tight end that was wide open on that play, maybe Indiana scores a touchdown early in the game to go up 7-0. Maybe it'd have been a little bit different, but we'll never know, because right after that pick, Jeremiah Love goes off for 98 yards. And right after that play, the game never turned back in Indiana's favor at all until basically the end, when Indiana kind of made a little bit of a run in garbage time. I mean, I would say it was garbage time, because it was. But I mean, if Indiana gets that onside kick, we're getting a little dicey though. Notre Dame was kind of getting a little squirrely with that, but still, I mean, the Jeremiah Love run though was fantastic for Notre Dame, and it put the game, firmly in their grasp. But then after that, Notre Dame didn't do all that good on offense. I mean, you look at the fact Notre Dame ran for like 175 yards in that game, and 98 of those yards was on one play.
Right.
Riley Leonard was contained.
Yes.
Notre Dame, passed the ball decently well. It was all dink and dunks. Indiana kept it all in front, but that's their offense. But like, Indiana did not give up another big play after that. It was a slow burn, like you said. It was just they kept inching along, scoring on these long drives. Indiana wasn't really having the ball that much, because Notre Dame had the time of possession advantage by a lot. I mean, I thought Indiana overall hung in there. I thought the defense tried, but yeah, just Rourke was not good enough until the end, when it didn't really matter. But I think the bigger storyline for me, though, is that people saying that like Indiana should be banned from the playoffs in the future, and like they didn't belong, when it's like, okay, Tennessee got blown out by Ohio State more than Indiana did. And, and like SMU was even worse. Like Indiana wasn't good, but should they be banned from the playoffs? If they go 11-1 again, they're making the playoffs. It doesn't mean they will. They most likely won't. But to say they should be banned, that was more of the storylines that I took away, was like people just ragging on Indiana more than any other team when it wasn't deserved at all.
Well, I got a few thoughts on that. I was going to get into kind of the overview of where we're at right now. And I just think what you clearly see in college football right now is that the gap between the top two conferences and the rest of the conferences is real. And it's just like when the realignment happened, and basically when the Big 12 lost their two anchor programs, and when the Pac pretty much got dissolved and they lost their major programs, I mean, what are you to expect? You know what I mean? The Big 10 and the SEC were only going to get stronger. And I think the gap between the rest of those conferences is just widened, and the ACC is not the same conference. This is not your older brother's Clemson. I mean, Florida State is obviously not the same program they were a year ago. So I think what you're seeing is just the gap still between the two major conferences and the rest of the conferences. I would add that. Although something I was going to get to with DeReal, I do believe, I know that obviously I'm on an SEC teams related show here, but to that point, how much I want to get your guys' opinion. I really want to get DeReal's opinion. I'm sure he'll chime in, but how much do you guys think that the gap has closed overall between the Big 10 and the SEC?
I think it's gotten a lot closer, because the fact that you're talking about, the Big 10, they have 18 teams now, and the SEC is 16. And the Big 10 has 6 or 7 programs that, when they get their junk together, can realistically compete for a national title if they actually have the resources and put it all together on the field with their coaches and players. Around 6, maybe 7 stretching it, but probably 6. And then when you look at the SEC, I mean, they have about 7 or 8 or maybe even 9 that, if they're really, really lucky, but I mean, it's mostly about 5 or 6 the same way. And the problem is that since the SEC is so competitive, I mean, they beat up on each other. That's why you had all those 3-loss teams right on the outside. That's going to keep happening. It's just going to be in the future. If they keep it a 12-team playoff, are they going to allow those teams in future years or not? Because, we know that those teams they're more talented than the teams they let in. But every single one of those teams had a really bad loss, too.
Right.
We already talked about Alabama's at length, and Ole Miss's was terrible to Kentucky. I mean, it was bad, but they beat up on each other to the point where they didn't get in. But I think overall, when you look at the two conferences, it is very narrow with the overall depth of the leagues and the top
Oh, Jeffrey froze. He will be
Quality going to take.
unfrozen.
No, I think
sorry about that. I froze. But the
No,
SEC is definitely still the better league, but it's going to take a lot for the Big Ten to get at the SEC's level. But the SEC is still the better league. I just feel like they kind of have a case of there's too many solid teams at the top, though, right now.
I think maybe you're going to see the SEC get to 20 teams at some point. They're going to try to pillage the ACC. Like,
well, I mean, if that happens, then it's just going to become where you got to get rid of the conference champions from the other league in the auto bids. You're going to have to get rid of them, getting that gifted spot at the top.
True.
Because it's not even going to be realistically even fair. It's already bad enough. If the SEC is 20 teams and the Big Ten even stays at 18 or does add 2 more, it's going to be so lopsided.
Right.
It's going to be so lopsided that you're just going to have to put basically the majority of the teams that make a 12-team playoff, or if they expand it further, which I'm against, but if they do, just most of them are just going to be from the Big Ten or the SEC.
See, go ahead, Jackson. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, our guy, Darrell, speak of the devil, has been summoned.
Oh,
we bring him on.
Let's please.
There he is, our friend Darrell MVP. How you doing tonight, good buddy?
Sorry, I was on the Rutgers channel with Adam Lamparello, and he had like a whole party of like 10 people in there, so I was talking there for an exit ramp.
Hey, Darrell, I made a bad comparison earlier. I'm glad you got here later. I said, is Darrell the fine bomb of the Mark Rogers channel?
I would love to be a paid shill like Michigan Man thinks it. I am. I would love to at least be paid for my take.
Oh, man, I'll
tell you how much money
you should definitely call in on the show, man. Like, it'd be awesome.
I may do it, but Paul Feinbaum's got interesting callers with interesting opinions. Let me put it that way, with interesting background. Some of those people, I'm like, it sounds like a cartoonish character of the real world. How we would just draw Southern people up. It's like good grief.
But, and we got Uncle Charles coming in the chat. Say, what's up, y'all? Roll Tide, North Carolina, Birmingham, Alabama. And a what's up to my Alabama brothers on the panel. What's up to you all, Uncle Charles? We thank you for tuning in, good buddy.
Yeah, David, get back to your point. Obviously,
yes, please.
I'm not going to deny the gap is close, because in 2022, the gap to me was at the biggest point it ever was, with the SEC beating 3 of the other 4 conferences except for Michigan, which lost to TCU, and then Georgia just splattered the field with purple. I still believe you can actually see some purple in the green grass if you go out there and look to this day with how bad of a beatdown it was.
Right.
But this idea that it's 1 year away or it's 2 years away or the Big Ten is already better right now is, in my opinion, laughable. I'd like to see some evidence on the field, and Ohio State beating Tennessee is a good example of what I think people, Big Ten fans, they're just looking for any modicum of respect. It's like, I've been saying for years, Ohio State's the only Big Ten team that can compete with the SEC on a normal basis. Their program is elite in that Alabama, Georgia echelon.
They recruit at that level.
Just a whole lot of 10-2, 9-3, 8-4 garbage. I mean, you'll have a Michigan that rises for 3 years. I don't believe in Penn State. I think Penn State is a product of the Big Ten. I think they're a South Carolina level team this year.
Penn State recruits in the about 7 to 12 range almost every year. Whereas what you're talking about, Darrell, is that Ohio State recruits in the top 4 every year. There's a difference. Recruiting matters so much at the very top, because when you're recruiting in that 7 to 15 range, those players are really solid, but they're nowhere near as good as the players that an Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State type program gets in the top 4 to 5 range. That's why to break into the top 5 of recruiting is almost impossible.
Well, I would add this, a couple things. First of all, I do think I would add another program in there. Actually, and I think there's another program that if they ever got their act together could be up there. The other program that I think is there this year is obviously Oregon. I think Oregon can get to that level to where that they can compete.
Yeah, when I was talking about 5 or 6 teams from the Big Ten, I was talking about Oregon, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, USC. That's 5, and then you have like Washington's been there before.
Right.
Nebraska has to do just a buttload of crap to get ever back there, but they've been there in the past. And Iowa, Wisconsin aren't really there, but you know what I'm saying?
No.
It can be 6, but it's just that's stretching it though. But it can't.
I'm a little bit more on 5, maybe.
Yeah.
I think I would say, see, USC is the conundrum. Here's a good question for you. Who's further away right now, USC or Oklahoma, from being good?
USC. Their program's a complete tire fire. They've lost basically every 5-star player that matters.
Good question, Dr. Buckeye.
It's tough, but
I think Oklahoma's pretty far though too to real.
Oklahoma's got a tougher path to get better because they're in the SEC, and I mean the USC can instantly be Penn State again, and with a decent year. They can go. They can go 10-2 a lot easier than Oklahoma can go 10-2 in the SEC. Which is why I think the SEC is a better league overall. The Big Ten's right behind the SEC, still tougher to win it.
It's basically the SEC, Big Ten, and everybody else in all of college football.
I mean, it's never going to change either. It's only going to get worse from here.
Yeah, the gap will only widen. Yeah,
because like I was looking at the ACC the other night, and this was from Saturday night. They have not won a big game in the postseason in the 2020s decade.
Right.
Not a single New Year's Six win. That's bad.
Well, that's not surprising at all.
I mean, what we need to acknowledge is Dabo caught a period of time where I believe the ACC was very weak. Number one, he benefited from that. And number two, he got two of the greatest college quarterbacks we've ever seen in our lives. Now, mind you, he did win it in 2017 with Kelly Bryant as his quarterback, although that team did get exposed by Jackson's team in the playoff, which forced him to make the Lawrence decision the next year. But, you know what I mean? It's just... because remember, they never recruited in that top 3 or 4 level. Clemson didn't. It was just a matter of them getting generational quarterback play, I believe. Like the 16 team that he won with, I don't want to say was kind of 2010 Auburn-ish, but it was kind of 2010 Auburn-ish, to where they had the generational guy at quarterback and didn't have the overall talented roster. Now, I do believe his 18 team was easily, obviously, one of the best teams we've seen in recent history. But, you know, I just think that that's it. Now, we'll see if Klubnik can, you know, and some of these other guys, if they can get back also to getting some of the skill players they've had in the past too. But, yeah, and plus, you know, he doesn't want to use the portal, although I guess he says he's going to embrace it now. So, I mean, we'll see about that.
He's going to have to use the portal. If he doesn't use the portal, then they're never even going to have a shot to get back to the top. But I don't even know if it's possible. Because, I mean, to your point, they never did recruit at that high of a level. And the ACC was so incredibly easy. Miami was floundering around. Florida State was floundering around in that era in the late 2010s. And, I mean, they would have so many close games to UNC, Georgia Tech, Syracuse. Like, they were barely scraping against bad teams. But the thing, I mean, which even good teams like Bama and Georgia, we've seen lose and struggle too. But I'm just saying that, like, Clemson would struggle against those bad teams. But they had such an easy schedule. Everybody's talking about strength of schedule now. I do believe that there is somewhat of an element that when you have an easier schedule, you aren't getting beat down as much as you are if you have a tough schedule. Kind of like Michigan, you know, last year won it all. Sure. Was their schedule hard? No, it was easy as crap. It was very easy. It was very easy. No one's saying anything about that, but it was very easy. And I think that, Clemson did get benefited potentially by the fact that the ACC was so weak when they were able to have that big run. And it's still not that hard, but they're just not as good anymore. That's why they're not winning.
To emphasize your point, Jeffrey, Clemson's recruiting ranking right now below Mississippi State.
Yeah, I mean, they're not there. They're not even close.
Right. Well, you know, that's the other thing, too, I was going to say. I think that this year, I just want to say, and I'm going to make this point. I think the SEC is deeper than the Big Ten. I get that point, and me and Mark have gone back and forth on that. I do think this is not the strongest I've seen the upper end of the SEC, because believe you me, as an Ohio State fan, I go way back. So I've seen some great SEC teams. Jackson can testify, obviously. You know, and, you know, a lot of the SEC, and this was the point I was going to make, obviously being on an Alabama show, I'm going to go ahead and make it. A lot of the SEC run is this program, is Alabama. I mean, it's as much a Saban era as it is anything else. Now, I agree. Urban had the teams that got us at the beginning, because it's amazing that the delineation point was really 2006, guys. You know, and I lived it obviously as an Ohio State fan. I don't know how much of you, Jeffrey, I know you're younger, but I don't know how much Jackson or Darrell were watching college football in 2006. I mean, I'm not trying to date you guys, but I'm just looking for a point.
2006 was awful for us.
Yeah, I was definitely probably gooing and God more than watching football.
I wasn't happy. I can tell you right now when we were 6-6 at that time.
Well, yeah, but the savior was coming the next year, Jackson. So you were about ready to get real happy. The point being is that if there ever was a line in the sand game, it was maybe that night in the desert against Florida. You know, the crazy thing is that I watched Florida play 6 times that year, and I never thought this team with Chris Leak, and they were a decent team, but, you know, they lost by 10 points at Auburn, and I'm like, you know, they're barely beating Tennessee, and they're barely beating these teams, and I'm like, this team ain't going to beat Ohio State on a neutral field by 4 touchdowns. And, you know, and then it happened. And then, you know, that was the run. And the thing about it is from that point, there was a period of a time where the Big Ten just got awful. Like the Big Ten, really the last few years as an Ohio State fan of the Tressel era and the first few years of the Meyer era was an awful conference.
That's why Kevin Wilson was able to get Indiana to 6 wins.
Yeah, right. You know, I'll say
they suck, man. Their defense was so bad in that era, but they were winning 50-48.
Yeah, because we weren't even the second best. The Big Ten, there was for a period of time, probably wasn't even the second best conference there for a period of time.
I mean, the Pac-10/12 used to be a whole lot better back then in the 2000s. Cal and you know, teams like that. USC was still good. Oregon got really good with Mariota, but then they just fell apart, man. The last few years of the Pac, that's why the last year of the Pac-12, before it disintegrated, when they were, you know, actually pretty fun to watch. People were like, wow, the Pac-12 is going out with a bang. Because the few previous years before that, they were horrible. But they used to be pretty good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's just the Big Ten definitely was probably behind them. But now the Big Ten they rose up because they made good acquisitions and they put so much money into
they
football.
also had will and care. This is my point that I've been saying. The Big Ten, if they want to be better than the SEC and get to that point, is they have to have your Marylands, your Washingtons, your Wisconsin level programs, your Illinois care as much as Carolina.
Like Indiana's trying to do. Like Indiana used to be trash, and now they're trying to be decent. I mean, what if Indiana can become a South Carolina?
Well, South Carolina hasn't won anything in forever. Neither is Texas A&M.
But South Carolina's competitive a lot of the time. Indiana.
Well, Illinois is good. Illinois ain't bad. They were a solid team this year. I mean,
How many of their fans do you see on the internet? How many of your fans do you see pumping out their house? Their stadium is like not nearly the electricity as any of these teams in the SEC. That
like Auburn's trash right now, but they still have the atmosphere. Yeah, I get your point.
Once you get those level programs to care and put the resources in and invest, then
Daddy's trying to make Indiana have an 80,000 people stadium. He's trying to make it happen.
Jeffrey, you're still getting those transfers, by the way.
Yeah,
you got the quarter.
Like, are we legit again? Well, you know, and did you see some of the returnees? Mikel Kamara's coming back.
Yeah,
Bridger's coming back. I mean,
I think Hemby could help you. Hemby, a running back, could help.
Our guy Backley's coming back.
Cal beat Georgia for him, which Georgia was like, "Oh, we were never interested in him." Like, okay, okay. It's funny though, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, I agree with Darrell though, like that, and to your point as well, Dr. Buckeye. It's like the Big Ten to get to the level of the SEC is that the bad to mid programs have to become like the SEC's bad to mid programs, a whole lot better. You know, in image and like the players they get, and they haven't done that. But I do think that they're getting better though.
Well, you know, the other thing too that we've always talked about too is the recruiting basis. Let's be real. Why the SEC is the SEC?
Florida.
I mean, you're right. I mean, it's where the recruiting bases are. I mean, location is everything. I mean, we're fairly fortunate. I mean, Darrell will testify, being a Kentucky fan. Ohio still has a fair amount of talent. I don't think it's quite the talent level that it was maybe in the 90s or early 2000s. And you can see Ohio State isn't quite as Ohio-centric as they used to be. You know, Meyer flipped the dynamic. I always say this. Tressel was 60-40 Ohio, and then Meyer became 40-60 the other way. But, you know, the crazy thing is the team that Meyer won with in 14 had like 15 starters from Ohio on it. Yeah. So, it's goes to show you that he flipped the dynamic, but the team he wins with has a ton of Ohio guys. But I digress. But yeah, I think right now, though, I think the recruiting has just become more nationalized, which you're going to have to do. I mean, Jackson will testify. Alabama's got great high school football, but Saban nationalized his recruiting.
Yeah,
absolutely. And you have to do it too. I mean, because there are great players everywhere. You're wanting to get the best players. It doesn't matter where they're at.
Right.
I completely agree. David, I was going to ask you about the playoff games.
Sure.
Now, as somebody who has been outspoken for about 3.5 to 4 years about the playoff being a complete and utter joke, I was celebrating like you wouldn't believe when Ohio State was blowing the doors off Tennessee. I mean, I was like, oh my goodness, this is going to be fantastic. Are you still pro 12-team playoff? Were you pro 12-team playoff? Or
I'm glad you asked, Ariel. Really never was. My number was always 8. My number was always 8. Now, to be fair, when I was 8, I would say we had a true 5 major conferences, because that's when I was saying it. Because we obviously, with 4 numbers, I think you were slightly off. Because my thought process was simple: take the 5 major conference winners, and then take the second place Big Ten, the second place SEC, which are usually 2 pretty good teams. Like in a normal year, those would be 2 pretty good teams. And then if you want to throw a bone to a Central Florida or a Cincinnati as your 8th seed, go there. And that would be in a normal year my 8-team playoff. And I will say this year, and remember the conversation we had last week, you guys did say, Darrell, I think you said there were 5 teams you thought that were capable of winning the title this year, maybe 6.
Yes, I think there's 4 to 5.
Yeah.
Probably
Okay.
5. I'd go
But
4.
before we continue the playoff talk, how are you feeling about the ReliaQuest Bowl between Alabama and Michigan?
Alabama needs their score.
Really? You think it's that bad? Can I ask? I want to ask this Alabama question, and I came with some Alabama stuff this week, just since we are on an Alabama show. Okay. And I haven't heard your show recently, but is it your belief that Milroe was never the type of quarterback that DeBoer would have recruited?
Yeah, he definitely would not have recruited him at all. I mean, because the guys he's worked with have been pocket passers that sling it downfield. I mean, Penix was perfect for what he wanted to do. That's why Penix had a great year. And like Milroe, there were so many times where they were trying to stick him in the pocket and have him throw deep downfield. And it's like Milroe is a better passer when he uses his legs. Once he gets his juices flowing, running downfield, and then he becomes a better passer. He reminds me of Cam Newton, even though he's not Cam Newton at all. Because like when Cam Newton was on fire is when he got a big run downfield, and then then he could go on with the deep ball downfield, or that. It just seems like to me, Jalen Milroe is a quarterback that needs to be able to get the run game going to set up the pass. He's not a guy that gets the passing game going to set up the run. In so many games I saw where they would just have Jalen Milroe sit in the pocket. I'm like, they need to have him run. They need to get him out of the pocket, get him on the move, and they wouldn't do it. And then in other games they did, because against LSU notoriously this season was bad at stopping QB run, and you just saw Milroe run all over the place on LSU. Right. That's why they killed him. But then against
Kelly
Oklahoma,
can't build a defense, by the way. Kelly can't build a defense. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but then against Oklahoma, like they didn't do it at all, and Bama got destroyed. I mean, Oklahoma did play pretty well on defense in that game, but I feel like if Milroe had been able to run some, then that wouldn't have happened. They never would have lost that game the way that they did. But yeah, to your point, Milroe never would have been a guy that Kalen DeBoer would have recruited. I don't think at all.
Yeah, I actually think so. I mean, the one thing that I will say is usually when Alabama has had kind of mid quarterbacks in the past, they've always had a more dominant running game. I think of like, when they won with the McElroy or the McCarron teams, those guys obviously, Coker, they obviously had dominant running games those years. And that's the one thing that I think that, the great thing about Saban was his ability to transition from the ground and pound teams to the air raid teams. And that's part of his greatness. I would agree. Now, he had the best run of receivers he ever had. I mean, I always say Tua has led a charmed life because he's always played with great receivers in college. Now he's got great receivers in the NFL.
If he could just not get hurt with his head,
right,
he'd be in perfect shape. Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, like, how many quarterbacks? Like, well, I don't know what you guys always thought. Like, I know we got clobbered by the 20 Bama team, but is there a case that the 19 Bama team might have been better?
I mean, I don't think that's unfair at all. Absolutely not.
I feel like if
Jackson,
we had just told Tua that, look, you don't need to be there every game. We need to let you just kind of chill, just rest up, prepare yourself for the biggest games. You don't have to play against Mississippi State. You guys sit and chill. Just
right.
Sit and chill for the next 2 weeks.
It's just hard to, really do that though, because I mean, when you're a team and you're just so in sync with your guy. I agree with you, Jackson. Though, I mean, because when he got hurt, that really sucked. But the thing is that I mean, when he's your guy, you just can't really bench him. It's hard to do that. But I get your point though.
Yeah, because it's not like he's being benched for a backup.
He's not being benched. It's just
right.
to sit him though. Like you got your team. They're used to him. That's what people don't understand when you want to do a 2 QB system. Like in theory it works, but so many things change. The cadence, the snaps, everything changes when you go to a different quarterback, especially when you're going from lefty to righty. It is so much more difficult. The balls are different. Everything's different, and people don't think about that. That's why it would have been a little bit kind of difficult to bench, or sit Tua for a while. I mean, but if they had of, maybe they would have been fine. But it is what it is. You can't go back. Yeah. Things happen.
Exactly. You can't go back to the past. You got to focus on the future. And as the last Bear Bryant assistant that was an active head coach in all of football said, the future starts now.
I do have to say this, Dr. Buckeye, though. I want to get your thoughts on the playoffs. When we were talking about the 12-team playoff.
Yeah.
I don't like the fact that all the games are on campus. And I know people are mad that I keep saying that because of the fact that, yes, it's good for the sport. I do love campus games. I don't like neutral site games. Why I say that the games should not be on campus, though, is I think that's what attributed to the blowouts more than who they were playing. Look at Alabama losing by 21 to Oklahoma on the road. Alabama lost all their games on the road. These games were not close because they were on the road. I think if they were neutral site games, they would have been a lot better of games. I think even if you had Alabama play at Ohio State, there's a shot Bama gets blown out too. There's a chance they get run off the field. I mean, or even against maybe Penn State. I'm not saying that, but still, I mean, I think that with these games being played in those massive atmospheres that heavily favored Penn State, heavily favored Ohio State, even though there were a lot of Neyland fans and all that, Tennessee fan, whatever, I think that contributed to the blowouts more so than anything else.
Yeah, I would add that I did think that the SMU might have been one of the biggest teams affected by the weather, by the way.
Yeah.
Just for the simple fact they seemed really out of their depth at Penn State. Now, Jennings also had an awful day, and that, starting off with the interceptions and all of that. I said to Mark, I thought that they were the one team that kind of seemed out of their depth. I mean, I think Tennessee just caught a team that was clicking that night. I actually do think Tennessee's somewhere like a top 12 to 15 team, if you want to be perfectly honest. I just think that Ohio State, to be fair, is obviously a lot better than an 8th seed. Let's just be real here, guys. They are. And, the real debate is that Ohio
Michigan game. That was
right. But to be fair, even and I understand that, but you could still make the case they should have been higher than Penn State. You could make
I agree with the head-to-head on that. I agree. I'm just saying that besides the Michigan game, and really, to be honest, besides the Michigan game and the Nebraska game, Ohio State played well all season. It was those 2 games.
Yeah,
that was it. Those 2 games, they were horrible. You can't even slice it any other way. They sucked against Michigan, despite the fact they still should have won, but they missed 2 field goals. And then against Nebraska, they were terrible. Other than that, I mean, Ohio State's look like one of the 4 best teams. I mean, they have the talent to do that. What they look like against Tennessee is what everybody was expecting them to be at the beginning of the season when they brought in all these guys. Like, they have one of the 4 best teams in college football based on roster, based on talent. But
Yeah.
I mean, when I watched them play against Michigan, I was like, what is going on? Like, the play calling was terrible. I mean, I didn't understand it at all. And then in this game against Tennessee, they just opened it up. They opened up the offense, and like Will Howard's dropping dimes. Like, I've been trashing Will Howard all year, and like he looked great against Tennessee. Great.
Yeah,
I mean, finally doing well. So
I feel like that pep talk from Coach Saban kind of fired him up a little bit. When he just let him know, you got to stop this BS. You got to stop this bit. You got to motivate the players. It was like, it's like, wow. Coach Saban was like, I still got it. I'm gonna come out of retirement.
There you go.
It's like, oh man, but it was so fun to see like Shane Gillis on College Game Day. It was pretty cool.
Do you think that was Saban upset at him? By the way, I mean, do you think he was really bothered? By the way, Indiana Jones or Alabama Jones is what Alabama Jones
doing his job, man.
No, McAfee brings out the best in Saban, I think, though, Jackson.
I think programming idea for all of college football if everybody's open to it. Like those little All-American, announcements like from like the 60s to the 90s that Bob Hope hosted.
Okay.
What if Shane Gillis hosted those? Think about it now.
Okay.
I mean, what we got to lose? I mean, you want to make college football great again? You get Shane Gillis hosting one of those.
It's gonna be. We need a lot more than that to make college football great again, man.
Well, I mean, Shane, like going from being thrown out of SNL to being like a huge buddy of Joe Rogan on the Joe Rogan Experience, and then hosting a college football award show every year, annually.
I'm sure that'll be the pinnacle of his career. That
would be awesome.
Nowhere else to go.
I will say, is expansion still going to be with us? Or we're going to go to 14 eventually here, or 16?
No.
Yeah.
No,
I'm so dumb about this. You're adding more teams that have no shot to win it all, and you're just now we're going to be debating 3, and even if you had the 64 loss teams, can a 4-loss SEC team get it? It's like, come on. I mean, it's not going to stop the problems. It's just not. I mean, it's going to make it work.
Yeah. And one of the dumbest arguments I'm seeing out there is this is the first year of this playoff. Yeah. Therefore, we need to wait. We've had 10 years of a playoff given blowouts. It's like having a restaurant with bad food and they don't fix any of the underlying problems and they just expand to multiple locations and then the food is bad everywhere. It's like, what's the purpose of this thing, man? It's terrible.
Just have Nick Saban be the Gordon Ramsay for like he's like the kitchen nightmares for college football. So I mean, like, there you go.
Well, I think what they're trying to do is they're obviously trying to get interest in the sport, or more interest, because this sport.
Just irritating people.
Well, I mean, this is a very regionalized sport, guys. We know it. I mean, we talked about the parts of the country where it's at its most popular, and I think that also the bowl games being so meaningless and players sitting out. I think that they, whether you want to say it,
play in the bowls.
What's that?
Pay them to play in the bowls.
When they went to a 4-team playoff, when they went to a 4-team playoff, and then guys like Jake Butt, that tight end at Michigan that got hurt, that lost his draft stock playing in that bowl game, stuff like that happened. Those two things simultaneously happening is why players stop playing in bowl games. Because before the 4-team playoff, you never ever had opt-outs. Never. I think going to a playoff at all is what made opt-outs start to occur. And then those few injuries that happened to key players, and then they lost all their draft stock. People made fun of Matt Corral. Never forget it. When he played at Ole Miss, got hurt in that bowl game. You're an idiot, Matt Corral. You're an idiot. You should have opted out. And it's like, dude, what is wrong with people? What is wrong with people? Like, used to people be like, I respect this guy for playing. Now people are like, you're a moron for playing for your team and then getting hurt. I respect
Jalen Smith, yeah.
It sucks. I don't understand. It's like with the Indiana thing. People used to be like, I love the underdog story. Now people are like, oh my gosh, Indiana sucks.
I know, right?
I don't know what's going on. The narrative, people are not supporting what they used to support. And it's
my guy Johnny, like anybody is watching like the Crimson Tide live shows, he's not been a big proponent of Indiana football.
Everybody just wanted to stick on Indiana. SMU was the worst team, by the way.
Hey Jeffrey, did I not call that the week before the day before the playoff game and said Indiana's going to be called frauds?
I already knew that. I knew it before that, Darrell. That's why I agree with you instantly. I've been saying it a while too. People were just waiting for them to have a game. If they had lost to Michigan, they would have said they were frauds. They won that game, but then they got blown out against Ohio State. Oh, they suck. Indiana was still one of the 15 to 20 best teams in college football this year.
Yes, but
I would put them probably like 18th. They were like 18th.
Yeah,
I think that they were a better team than SMU. I do. I think they were a better team than SMU.
Oh yeah,
I do.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Nobody's trashing SMU because it kept Bama out. It kept Bama out, so we love them. But Indiana, you suck.
No,
Like,
I've
come
seen
on.
people trash SMU. I've seen
They
people.
did.
Yeah,
but they
I
didn't
actually
trash
did.
as hard as they trashed Indiana, though.
No,
they
no,
didn't.
I don't think you're looking in the right places because every time I see is SMU Indiana gets lumped together, then you got all the comment bro says, Tennessee also
Indiana got trashed more, man. I mean, maybe I'm only looking at the IU side of things, but
yeah, everybody's trashing SMU and Indiana from what I'm seeing, and everybody in the comments section is saying Tennessee got blown out worse than SMU and Indiana, therefore they didn't belong in the playoffs.
Tennessee didn't belong in the playoffs. No, they did.
Well, you were only a 6.5 dog, Jeffrey. I mean, Vegas didn't think it was that bad of a game. Although I was all over the 6.5.
The Vols, they acted so cringe on Saturday night. They were like, "We're taking over Columbus." It's like, yeah, you're not taking over anything. You haven't even played the game. You're the definition of the pigeon pooping on the chessboard and starting around like you won before you even kicked off.
Can I just say I've been on SEC channels. I've been on SEC channels, and a lot of SEC. There's a lot of hate for Tennessee amongst other SEC teams.
It's because of their fans online.
Yeah,
they're both. People don't like Ohio State either because of their fans online. Yeah, that's the only reason.
Jeffrey, with all due respect, Tennessee is in their own league. They are the SSSSS plus tier of fans just being crazy delusional. They honestly think they are going to win every game 40-0, and if they don't, it is a crime against humanity. They believe Josh Heupel should be fired. They were calling for him being fired in the first quarter. I wouldn't be surprised, man. They have the expectations of Alabama with the results of an Ole Miss level team. And that's the crazy part.
As I said on CFB After Dark for Tennessee, the big test is going to be, can they win the big game on the road 2025? Because they have not beaten Alabama in Tuscaloosa since that 5 overtime game in 2003. And they have not beaten the Florida Gators in Gainesville since 2003.
Hey, Georgia can't beat Bama either.
Nope.
Well, that's true. Hey, can I just say this as an Ohio State fan that they're known for being bad online? Can I just say I'm part of the lunatic fringe? By the way.
I've seen worse, Dr. Buck. I've seen worse. Come on. You're not in that.
I wanted to give Herbie some airtime there, to quote the By the way, somebody is going to come up with that T-shirt for Lunatic Fringe. I just want to say that. Or, by the way, a great name for an 80s metal band, Lunatic Fringe, by the way. Great name for an 80s metal band.
Oh, man.
I was surprised.
Oh, really? Chicago Bears had a 3-point game. Like, what did I miss?
Moore went from a sucky team to a sucky team, and they should have kept Justin Fields. My goodness, come on.
Oh, my God. 6-3 Seahawks. Well,
too bad I missed that game.
Oh, you didn't miss. Wait till you're Al Michaels, where he's like, "Oh, I went from Miracle on Ice to this." Well, that's overwhelming.
I love Al Michaels, and I do not know why he left. I mean, and went to pro.
NBC throw him out.
Dude, the Brown game always sucks. It sucks.
Well, yeah. I mean, why do you think they have Mike Tirico waiting on board?
That's a downgrade. I'm sorry. I know Al Michaels is getting older, but I still think Al Michaels is better than Mike Tirico. I may be in the minority.
Everybody always trashes Collinsworth online. It's hilarious. Oh my gosh! I mean, sometimes he makes me laugh, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like as a whole, commentating's gotten worse. Do you agree, Dr. Buck? I think it's downgraded heavily than what it used to be.
Well, remember I said last week I would have still taken Olsen over Brady as a commentator. I mean, Brady, Although I'll say this, Troy Aikman was a block of wood once he got started, and he grew into it and got a lot better. But I mean, maybe Brady can take that trajectory or that course, but because I think Aikman's pretty solid, to be honest with you.
I remember when people used to say Troy Aikman when I was younger was like the worst commentator. Now people are just like, he's fine,
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, I mean, you can get better. I mean, I just think it's funny though because of we're in the era where like really famous players are getting, commentating jobs when they retire. It's like they're getting these jobs instantly, and like some of them are really bad when they start. Now, like you said, some of them do get better, but it's like they're not like working their way into the position like older commentators used to have to do. It's because they're famous players. They're already just getting the jobs. And like at first, I don't think that they're very good. Some of them, like they're actually pretty poor. But then, after a few years, they become pretty decent at it. But yeah, it takes time. I mean, it's not easy to do that. I mean, you're sitting there for 3.5 hours commentating a game and trying to come up with things to say. And I mean, like not everybody likes Robert Griffin III, but like when he started, he was instantly funny. He was instantly hilarious. Like that doesn't mean his takes are always good, but I laugh when I listen to him.
ESPN needs to do themselves a solid, bring his little butt back, and throw out Jesse Palmer. You love Food Network so much.
Jesse Palmer, ever since he's been doing the Bachelorette and all that stuff, I'm sorry, Jesse, but it's not as good, man.
Suck, Jesse Palmer. Get out of there. Get out of here. I mean, that moron did not care about Georgia Tech. He didn't even study the history of it. He just
Tessitore dropped the ball on that game, man. He was like, "Oh, Georgia's in if they win this game."
By the way,
I bet you if it was on his secretary's land up above, he'd have remembered it.
Can I say something? Alabama, in the interest of the Alabama channel, I think is solid. McElroy. I actually think McElroy does. Shout out to McElroy. I don't think Now, I don't like McElroy's partner all the time. I think McDonough can be. I agree with Mark. I think McDonough can be annoying from time to time. Mark has a good line. He gets up on his soapbox from time to time, which I tend to agree with. But McElroy, I listen to his podcast. I've listened to him call games. He's not bad.
Well,
he's not bad.
According to everybody I see in the comments section there, he's just another one of these SEC shills.
Well, I disagree with that. I disagree with that.
Everybody that's connected to ESPN is obviously an SEC shill, according to everybody else, and they're only there to promote the SEC. And
what was going on with Kirk Herbstreit, though, man? With Kirk Herbstreit, when I was younger, like he was like Herbstreit, but I don't know what's going on with Herbstreit. Like lately, man, it's like Indiana, they didn't belong out there on the field. They didn't belong out there. And I'm like, dude, what is wrong with you? Tennessee.
Oh man, I saw where
I'm going to ask Jeffrey this question.
Yes.
Was Indiana one of the 12 best teams?
No, I said they were like 18th, but how many other teams are in the playoff that are not one of the 12 teams? Arizona State's not one of the 12 best teams. SMU's not one of the 12 best teams. Clemson was not one of the 12 best teams. Boise State was not one of the 12 best teams. So how's that? What does it matter? It doesn't matter.
My point is we should just throw all of those teams out and
just get them out there. That's why you didn't need a 12-team playoff. That's why you needed 6-8.
Yeah,
that's what I've been saying.
It's so dumb.
I agree. I've been on the
only reason I'm defending Indiana is because those other teams are in, and people aren't trashing them as much. That's why
I've been trashing them this whole time. I've been right there. I've been calling the Mark shows.
Of course, you are the real, but so many other people aren't.
Do you know? I will say, from an Ohio State perspective, this 12-team playoff could really help save Ryan Day.
Oh, his job security's gone up big, and if he wins again, then if he beats Oregon, then he's fine again. He's all good.
Well, yeah, because if you think about it, they'd have been done 4-team era. You know what I mean? I have to say they'd have been done, and if he can only accomplish something I've only seen 2 other times in my lifetime, as I was telling you guys before. That's the only way to a lot of fans that he makes up for it. Now, I think semis title game, I could still be okay, but to a lot of people, that's the only way he makes up for it.
Hey, Jackson, I know you don't.
You're muted, Darrell.
Can we have him explain his comment about why Kirk Herbstreit is a paid SEC shill? How about Kirk Herbstreit has an opinion that the SEC is the best conference because the results on the field dictate that this year.
Will and D said Kirk Herbstreit was great, but now he is bad. I feel like SEC pays him to be an SEC homer. No other explanation to why he was good, and now he is bad. I mean, I don't think Will's necessarily wrong at all. I mean, I like Herbstreit a lot better when I was younger, too. I've really not tried to trash anybody publicly.
Yeah.
Like, nothing against any of these commentators. I just feel like a lot of them have gone downhill. Like Herbstreit, when I was a kid, I thought Herbstreit was like way up there. Now it's like his takes are just all over the place. Not great, not consistent at all. And I mean, I get your point, DeReal. We know the SEC's best conference, but it's how you present it. It's the way that you state things. That's why being a commentator is not as easy as people think, because everything that you say gets dissected to death. You have to be very careful with how you choose your words. And I feel like the way that the these commentators are saying stuff, it's just so far tilted in a direction even more than it should be. We already know that the SEC is better, but it's just the way that they're going about saying it. I feel like that's irritating people.
Well, and
a lot of people
one of Herbie's takes irritated the guys on First Take, Shannon Sharp, particularly from Club Shay Shay.
Now, hold on a second. Can I just say the First Take should stop talking college football because they know nothing about it. Please, they know nothing.
Most of those shows are bad, man.
The shouty shows got to stop, man. They got to just
That's
stay.
Like people that watch Stephen A. Smith for anything. Like, why? Why are you doing that to yourself?
There's nothing wrong with staying in a lane. If your knowledge base is NBA basketball, and I actually don't think Stephen A. knows that much about the NFL, to be honest with you. The guy was an NBA beat writer, and he's trying to get into these other areas where, he tried to talk UFC fighting with Joe Rogan one night.
Oh, yeah. Rogan gave him.
I swear, if you would have died laughing.
Where Rogan was giving him that. What the hell are you talking about, man?
I mean, talk about a dude that's like out of his depth. I mean, it was just, come on. I mean,
Will and D said, I have a friend that always watches First Take. He watched Undisputed too. It's brain rot. That's why I don't watch it. I don't like brain rot. I mean, it's just a little bit above all that TikTok Gen Alpha brain rot junk. It's just a little bit above that stuff. I mean, come on. I'm not even going to say none of it. Someone's going to clip it and be like, Jeff's gone down the rabbit hole. I'm not doing it. You know what I'm talking about.
I do.
I watched that.
Wise beyond your years.
A lot of Club Shay Shay, although I have to do better about that. I watched that Cat Williams episode, but that's pretty much it.
Cat Williams. That's the one you picked, Jackson?
Dude for 3-year-olds, man.
What'd you say, Dr. Buckeye?
I can't believe that's the one you pick. I thought you would want to watch one with some form of a football player, basketball, something. Cat Williams. I don't know how you come up with that one, Jackson.
Well, I mean, it was the one that went viral, but that because I thought about I watched that clip where he talked with where he was asking him if Rogan would have him on. He's like, Joe don't want me. He's got those sits on funny comedians, but then a month later we see him on the Joe Rogan Experience where he's like, you're gonna get me in a lot of trouble there, Joe. But Joe don't want me. Joe don't want me. He's got those sit on funny comedians.
The last thing I just want to close with on this was the SEC thing. I wanted with the ESPN. I will say that, I mean, first of all, the network is an SEC network. I mean, to be fair, I mean, that is where their dollars are. And there is a feeling in this world that sometimes your commentary might be directed to where the dollars are flowing. So that's not beyond the realm of normality to say something like that.
I mean, that's fair. But the thing is people, I see what the critics are saying, and some of the critics believe the Big 12 is a better conference than the SEC.
Oh, okay, that's stupid.
Those people are just being delusional, DeReal. That they don't even believe. If they believe that, then they're deranged, because
that's lunatic fringe.
People know for a fact that's not true. The SEC is the best league. The Big Ten can be debated. Nobody else is close.
Jeffrey,
none of them
I honestly believe there are some people out there that believe the ACC and Big 12, the only reason that they are not on the same level as the SEC and Big 10 is because Fox and ESPN are paying these conferences money. to advertise about those conferences.
The ACC has a contract with ESPN, and the Big 12 is a contract with Fox. Like, the conferences just suck more. That's the problem. They lost their good teams. Well, the ACC has it, but the Big 12 and the Pac-12 dead.
You know what? To say I'm being even-handed here, I would say that Klatt at time to time tries to carry a lot of water for the Big Ten. If you want to just keep this even, Steven, and say, an announcer going towards where his bread is buttered, if you want to.
I like Klatt, and I think he's a good announcer. I think he's very knowledgeable about the sport. I think people just look for easy outs about attacking these people and say, well, you're paid by this guy, therefore you automatically have to have these certain set of opinions, when in my opinion, these people just have these opinions.
That's why I liked it better when the conferences had multiple like network deals. I kind of like how the Big Ten does, but like when the SEC used to be on CBS, you had that network.
Jeffrey face froze again. And 3, 2, 1.
No, it's
yeah.
Jeffrey froze like Indiana's football team.
No,
he will be unfrozen in just a little bit. That internet is playing the mess around with him.
This one thing about Herbie, I was going to say though, from an Ohio State perspective, I just want to put this out there real quick. Ohio State fans, he was gaining a lot of hate from. I know you probably maybe heard the story. They said he moved out of Columbus and moved to Tennessee, years back. I don't know if you guys already heard that, because. I think a lot of Ohio State fans basically wanted him to be a cheerleader.
And he's unfrozen.
Sorry about that. My internet froze for a minute. What I was saying was, the college football playoff is all on ESPN too. Like there's none of the games on Fox, right? It's all ESPN, ABC. Now they've done TNT and Max or whatever.
That was stupid.
It's all tilted. It's like they need to put some of those games on Fox. They need to put some. They need to throw a game on NBC or CBS too, but they're not going to do that.
David Zasloff at Warner Brothers is a freaking moron.
No, why would you put a game on TNT and Max? Hold on.
Let me defend the decision, okay? Let me defend the decision. He's going against NFL games, and I believe they knew that the playoff system was going to give blowouts. So why not sublease it and get guaranteed money? Because SMU Penn State ratings were terrible, along with the what was the other TNT game? Clemson, Texas?
Yep, Clemson, Texas,
no, that was
Penn State, SMU were both on TNT.
Right, both of those teams' ratings weren't that good at all. I mean, there was regular season games that beat them. I think Army-Navy beat both of them, and I believe that TNT thought it would be much higher than that. That's just my speculation.
CBS would still have been a better spot for those other games, though.
Well, Ohio State did decent. I would say that it hasn't college always tried over the years to not put themselves up against the NFL. You know what I mean?
They have for years.
That's why they don't have a marquee Thursday night game except for in the first week of the season when there's no NFL.
Right. Yeah, which, and the NFL is still the NFL. I mean, you look at the highest rated TV events of every year. I mean, how many years every year is the Super Bowl always going to be the highest rated, whatever. It's
because they're better players. People want to watch better players. I've talked to so many people that say they don't watch college football because they say the players aren't good enough. And I'm like,
well, I would say
that, I guess, but at the same time, it's like they're still good athletes, man.
Do you know what the case for the NFL is what you saw in the playoffs this weekend compared to what you'll see the first weekend of the NFL playoffs? Guarantee you the first week of the NFL playoffs, you'll see close games. Right. And you're not going to see close. See, that's the one thing about college. I mean, there's the two things. The play is better, obviously, and then the second thing is I saw the stat over the last 20-some years, 60-some% of NFL games are decided by 7 points or less. You can't say that.
Spreads in the NFL are so tight. Like you'll even see it even like with the Chiefs playing a bad team, and it's like an 11-point spread. Whereas if Bama's playing Vandy, it's a 25-point spread.
But what's the bottom line, Jeff? If you're watching two teams you don't care about, what's the one thing you want to see in your life? A close game. Right.
I agree. It's because the teams in the NFL have closer teams across the board because you have a salary cap and all the teams have great players. Even the Panthers and even the Bears have a couple of really good players. They might not have a lot, but they got a couple of really good players. The NFL is much more competitive. College football, when you've got freaking Purdue this year being 1-11 playing Ohio State on Fox, getting the prime time big new kickoff slot. And it's like, okay, that game sucked. It's like Purdue's trash. But then you have like the Panthers playing the Chiefs, and what the Panthers almost beat the Chiefs this year. I mean, the Panthers are horrible. Well, I mean, yeah, the NFL's a lot closer. I agree, because the teams are not as far apart in talent because every team has great players.
Stephen Cherry has a great take in the comments. The CFP Natty should be on a Saturday night, not on Monday night. And here's and I know like NFL playoffs are on Saturdays, but here's a solution. The night games that are like the NFL playoff matchups, they're on like Peacock, NBC, whatever. Right. Move it up to noon. Move it up to noon, 11 a.m., whatever, right? And the nighttime slot should go to college football's national championship. There we go.
I mean, saying Friday night would be better.
I actually kind of agree with the Saturday. I agree with the Saturday
better.
Yeah, because
Saturday better too.
I know Josh Pate's a big proponent for college football's national championship should be on Saturday night.
Well, the problem is that I mean the thing is, there's people that work every day of the week, but I mean Monday night and being that late and so many people waking up the next day to go to work. I mean, it's just not that good, especially on the East Coast. It sucks. It is terrible watching.
Tuesday night should be like, because I mean, like maybe Tuesday night should be like the automatic like day off where it's like for the day after the national title. It's like, hey, you get the rest. Everybody stayed up.
College is a Saturday sport. Do it on Saturday. I'm for that.
Yeah, that's what Troy V said. I mean, that makes so much more sense. I've always wondered why they did that as well. I mean, I get to emphasize it's a special game. It's on a different day. I mean, that's stupid. It's put on.
It's almost like the national championship game should be just emphasized enough because it's the national championship game. You know, that's my opinion.
Well, gentlemen, anything else? What's your prediction on Alabama, Michigan? Darrell, we'll start with you.
Colston Loveland isn't playing. Donovan Edwards isn't playing. Michigan, I don't know how they're going to score 14 points in that game. Alabama's got Milroe in it. That's all I need to know. I think Alabama's going to run all over Michigan because they just got opt-outs. I like Alabama 28-10.
I'm gonna give mine real quick because I have to run.
Right.
Just to confirm, Will Johnson not going to play as well. Is that confirmed? And your running back Haynes also not going to play, or are both of those things also true?
Yeah, I mean he just transferred to Michigan, so I don't think he's playing. I don't think so.
Okay, well, because I know Devin Brown's transferring for us. He's still playing for
some of them are, because there was a guy I think for Arkansas State tonight or something like that in this bowl game it's on right now. It was in the portal that he's playing for the team, so maybe, but I don't think so. But I mean, I'm not 100% on that. Jackson probably would know.
Well, just to confirm, especially if Johnson isn't playing, I think Ryan Williams is going to go off too. I think he's going to get some of those deep balls from Milroe, and Alabama will know to throw the ball down the field to their wide receivers. And I'm kind of where Darrell is at. I'm going to say 27-7.
I can see that.
Well, it's a pleasure, guys.
Yeah,
great for coming on.
Yeah, well, I will.
What we all learned this week is Alabama belonged in the playoff. I think that's what we learned this week.
Well, hey, if they don't lose to Vanderbilt or Oklahoma, I mean, come on.
That's what I'm saying. That Oklahoma game was on the road and they got smoked.
That knocked us out.
Unbelievable.
Listen, I know people get upset when I say this. Oklahoma is much better than a 6-6 team. They're probably 8-4, 9-3 in the ACC, Big 12.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean,
Florida would probably go 10-2 or 11-1 in the ACC with Lagway.
I'm sorry.
All season.
By the way, South Carolina, hottest team I thought in the SEC at the end of the year.
South Carolina had the biggest case to get in my opinion, for how they played down the stretch.
They got hosed by the refs against LSU, and by the way, had Bam on the hook there. Had Bam on the hook there.
Onside kick, they got the onside, and I thought they were going to win, and they couldn't get in field goal range. All they needed was a field goal, they win.
Yeah, Beamer.
South Carolina was the team that deserved to be in my opinion, the most.
Yeah,
We need a team in Clemson that lost against 3 SEC teams, and for representation, though, purposes, Jeffrey. Everybody needs to be included in everything now in society.
Well, to be fair, they did win their championship, whether you think the ACC... Okay.
I don't care. This is what I tell you. No, these conference championship games are irrelevant in all aspects. Who cares that Oregon won the Big Ten? Who cares? If they lose to Ohio State, frauds, failure, they're only good in the regular season. Dan Lanning can't win a postseason game. All that stuff's going to be said. Same thing with Georgia. If they lose to Notre Dame,
Oregon could have a bad game. I mean, we saw Ohio State lose to Michigan, and then they turn around and destroy Tennessee. That was not the same team that we saw. Teams can have bad days and good days. There's human beings on the field. We're not perfect.
By the way, Notre Dame, smart to try to emulate that Georgia Tech game plan if they can. You run the quarterback. Now, I'm not saying Riley Leonard can be Haynes King, but could be interesting. Notre Dame without some key defensive players, so I don't know if they can get that done. But I think that game is close, though.
Here we go.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be closer than it was Indiana Notre Dame. I can almost guarantee you that one.
Oh yeah, they'll end up losing by 11.
Well, gentlemen, thank you.
Good show, guys.
And
good talking
we will get to our next
talk to you
caller.
guys soon.
You do have a good night and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
We will keep it rolling on Alabama with the Voice of College Football as we got our friend of the Voice of College Football, the one and only Will and D. How you doing tonight, good buddy?
I'm doing good, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, thanks for coming on. Oh man, it's been a very interesting night and Christmas Eve. I can tell you, it's wow, 6-3 in an end. Oh right, it feels like Wake Forest Boston College all over again.
It was an ugly game, yeah. The Bulls have been good today, though. The Bulls games have been good at least.
Yes. Yeah, Rutgers threw it away.
They
Rutgers threw it away.
Oh yeah,
the Toledo Pitt game was insane. All the overtimes.
Oh my god!
I told you Pittsburgh were frauds, man. 7-0.
Well, their quarterback got hurt.
I know. It just was so funny that I was like, when they were 7-0, like they're no good. And
I'm still upset that we're never gonna get our Pittsburgh Penn State matchup. Like, oh my god!
I don't think Penn State cares. That's the thing.
Well, they should care.
But a lot of good games in the 70s and 80s between those two.
Agreed. It's such a historical. Like the Pennsylvania legislature needs to see the history of the Penn State-Pittsburgh rivalry. But what's on your mind on the latest on Alabama football, Will?
I mean, Bama should roll over Michigan, especially with all Michigan's opt-outs. So what's the latest on the portal? Are you guys excited about any portal guys for Bama so far, or?
Well, I mean, our latest addition in the recruiting class that we saw for 2026, we got him. You should have seen the commitment live stream that he had on Christmas Eve. He had everybody thinking he was going to Tennessee, but instead he was going to Alabama. He's like, "Oh, we had you in the first half." But gonna have to check and see. So we get a curveball from Michigan. Oh yeah, our guy Justice Haynes leaving for Michigan.
Yeah, that was a tough loss. I mean, I know he wasn't like the definitive starter or anything because Jam Miller got a lot of snaps, but still was a key contributor. Yeah, I mean, Alabama's got some portal additions. I mean, they got we talked about Isaiah Horton from Miami. They got a linebacker from Colorado, D lineman from Florida. I mean, some highly rated guys. It's just going to be interesting to see how, they end up, I guess you would say, coming onto the team and how they fare, like, are they just going to seamlessly transitioning. Because that's the biggest key in the portal era is like, do you have an Indiana situation where all the guys come in and they just take off and run? Or do you have guys come in and they struggle and they don't really, you know?
I was only saying that because I felt like a lot of Alabama guys left. But
I mean, Alabama's recruiting class is still great. I mean, it's ranked number 2 overall. We got so many 5-star high school guys and highly rated 4-star guys. I mean, we're still recruiting great, but it's just, to me, I mean, like most of those guys aren't even going to play as, you know, freshmen anyway. So it's like, can these portal guys, can they come in and have an impact since they're the ones with more experience? I mean, I'm going to be more intrigued to see that. I do think Alabama definitely needs more work in the portal, but they have brought in a few solid players so far that hopefully will pan out. I think Alabama's still in a pretty good place. Obviously, I mean, recruiting the way Saban recruited, I mean, that's just almost impossible to emulate. But, I mean, they're not that far off. I mean, they're still bringing in really good players. It's just more so about those guys developing.
So, hey, what's your prediction for the ReliaQuest Bowl, Will?
I'll go 31-10 Alabama.
That's pretty good. I like it.
Yeah, most people are in the same range. Like Dr. Buckeye said, didn't he say 27-7, and Drill said 28-10. So you guys are all in the same ballpark. What's your prediction, Jackson? Have you made it yet?
I did. As a matter of fact, it was on Monday night where Johnny and I had TJ and John from Michigan Boys College Football, and I said it was going to be 28-17 Alabama Michigan.
Yeah, I have not made my prediction. I'll probably just say it right now. I'll probably go 31-13.
31-13.
Bama.
Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, we're all in the same area. I think Bama will easily win. I mean, yeah, they had the Oklahoma game, but I do think that they're going to go out there and, you know, and play reasonably hard. I wouldn't see why they wouldn't. I mean, because like you said, to get revenge. And I mean, Michigan's so depleted. I think Michigan will try, I guess, with the remaining players, but they're not going to be able to do much. I mean, they might score, you know, maybe like a garbage touchdown at the end, because I think it'll probably be like 31-6, and then they'll score a garbage touchdown. But that's just my opinion. I almost picked it closer the more I'm thinking about it with Michigan and how depleted they are. Like, they put all their whole season on that Ohio State game. Like, they're not going to have the same effort in this one, I don't think.
There we go. Godfather makes an offer he can't refuse with a 35-10 victory over the Michigan Wolverines. And we got our guy, Garrison, from the Ohio State Primetime Show. And, I mean, I forget the show's name where he's on with Bryce Sack, but it's a great one. But he does a great job on the Primetime Show on Ohio State Boys College Football. Go check him out. I can tell you right now, this guy makes magic big time. That's what his Scarlet Blue show. There it is. My bad. Don't let me forget it, Garrison. It's like roll tide roll, and wish best of luck against the Oregon Ducks.
Steven Cherry.
I'll be surprised. I'll be surprised.
Thanks for the warning, Steven. We'll keep an eye out.
Oh man, we're wondering where Mike G was, but I guess he's not too happy. But I mean, oh well, he'll come back.
I don't think Mike G necessarily liked the discussion that was going on earlier. If you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, he was yeah. What do we do? Oh well, we're not gonna figure it out tonight. But here we go, and we got another call on the line. Hunter Ketchum. We will get to him in just a few minutes. But how's your Christmas this year, Will? What'd you get?
I mean, it was good. Just watch some football. I mean, the football game sucked, but the NBA games were good at least.
Oh, there you go. I mean.
Yeah. Did you watch any of the Diamond Head Classic in college basketball?
I should. I
watched the Oakland Hawaii game. I don't know why I flipped that one on, man. Dude, that game was just so dumb. I mean, no one watched that game, but like I was watching it, man, and like Oakland had it, and they're so much worse than they were last year when they beat Kentucky in the tournament. They suck, but Hawaii held on. And then Nebraska beat Oregon State in the championship game. I had that flipped on. I don't know why. I was watching the Dominic Classic over the NBA and everything. Like, that shows you where my interest in the NBA is right now.
The NBA games were actually decent.
Yeah, I'm sure they were good. I just didn't really care to flip them on. So.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, ain't no flop like a LeBron flop.
Mm-hmm.
So
I did watch like a smidge of the end of the Warriors game. I had to check Jackson Davis and see how he was doing. He had a pretty good game. I didn't watch the whole thing though.
Oh man, yeah,
that was like the only bit of NBA that I watched.
Oh man, everybody in the chat, for those who love what Jeffrey's doing on Only Talk Sports and on Indiana at the Voice College Football, you might as well do like a $1 for every time you hear Trace Jackson Davis. He is the biggest fan of Trace Jackson Davis. We might as well make
He's the only reason why Mike Woodson has a job.
Yes, thank you, Will. If it wasn't for Trace Jackson Davis, Mike Woodson would be fired. Yes, I agree. I mean, he's the only reason. I mean, dude, he carried that team that got blown out to Miami in the tournament a couple years ago. And did you see Larinaga stepping down because Miami sucks?
Yes, they lost to my parents' alma mater, Mount St. Mary's.
What happened to the billionaire guy, though? The life wallet dude that was getting Wong and Pack to stay. What happened with that?
I don't know. I mean, I guess he's maybe cut down on the funds a bit. Maybe.
Yeah, he must have cut down big time on the funds.
I think Nevin Shapiro got paroled out of prison.
Devin got out.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I thought that guy was going to be in jail for life for all his Ponzi scheming.
Yeah, he got pardoned, so maybe they get him back in, just be like, hey, can you still work some of your magic?
Mm-hmm.
Man, it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yes.
But Will, what magic? Yep. He does. He loves them some Cincinnati.
Oh, my gosh.
Well,
thanks, Steven.
You and Jeffrey made some magic on the CFP first round reaction, the portal update. What was going on there?
Yeah, we were just talking, looking at all the crazy portal stuff, recapping the games.
Yeah, we had a good time. It was a lot of fun. I mean, we've been doing it every week for the college football season and keep it going for a while longer. Definitely. I mean, it's always fun just shooting the breeze with Will. Me and Will do a lot of fun stuff over there every Tuesday night. So you definitely don't want to miss that. Sometimes it's Monday nights, depending on the week. We have to move it every now and then, but most of the time it's on Tuesday. But maybe Monday this week. I don't know. Man, we'll see how it works out. It's New Year's Eve. I mean, I'm probably not going to be available on New Year's Eve. So
there you go. Well, I'll tell you this though. You can check out Will on Klowski414 on Instagram. Check out his YouTube channel, Will and D Irish on YouTube. And give him a follow on Marcus_Era on @/Twitter.
I'm going to try to film another Notre Dame video tomorrow, too. We'll see.
There you go, man.
Definitely. I mean, Will's been getting the YouTube going again, so you definitely want to check that out for sure. He's got a lot of good Notre Dame content and whatever else you got coming down the pike.
There you go, man. And we got some magic making tomorrow afternoon on the buzzer beater. That's going to be a wild ride.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Including our take on the Jim Laranga resignation. So it'll be fun, and we'll be seeing you soon, man.
See you guys.
Merry Christmas, Will.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Stay warm. And we have our Nets caller on the line, Hunter Ketchum. How are you doing, man?
Good, man. How you doing?
Oh, we're doing great. How are you doing tonight, good buddy?
Good. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. What's on your mind tonight, man?
Yeah, so a lot of things are on my mind, but I've seen some posts lately, and it just kind of irritates me that some Alabama fans think that we are not taking advantage of the portal like they think we should, and saying that we're being scared to go after big name guys. And my thing is I want us to be selective in the portal. I just want to just take just anybody because we need to fill a spot. Now we do have some needs, like you said. We need to add a couple more guys. I think we need a safety out of the portal would be nice to get if we can find somebody that fits. I think the thing with the portal is you have to find guys that A, have the talent, and two, meet the culture that your team has. And I
Mm-hmm.
think Kalen's done a good job of that. I think Saban did a good job of that too when he was when he was coaching. He brought in Jameer Gibbs and a couple other guys that were really good additions to the team. They just I mean, I don't like the Colorado approach where they're just taking a bunch of guys because I think that's going to cause them more issues than it's going to solve issues. Um, but I mean, I just hear some of that on message boards and things like that, and some Bama fans getting frustrated that we're not just aggressively attacking the portal. But I think Caitlin's taking his time and just being very selective on.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think that's definitely the way to go. And if Dabo Sweeney will start doing that at Clemson, where he just selectively will bring in a few guys, like I've said for years that he needed to do. I think that could do wonders for their program, even if it can't get him back to the top. But it would help because not using the portal at all, I mean, you're absolutely crazy if you don't use the portal at all. You have to. You're losing guys to the portal every year. So if you're not bringing any guys in, then you're just losing players. It doesn't even make any sense. So, yeah, definitely like Alabama right now has 5 transfer additions. A guy from Florida, Utah, A&M, Miami, and Colorado. And I think all of them, are pretty solid fits. I mean, you don't know them very well because I haven't really paid attention to these guys, but doing some research, I think they're pretty good fits. And like you said, the Colorado approach, I mean, Dion had to do it in year 1, I guess, because the team sucked the previous year. And so he was just getting whoever he could. But then in year 2, he did it again. It worked to better results because, I mean, he's brought in enough talent and he's in a not so great league to the point where he was able to win a decent amount of games. But I do agree that I think being selective is better because you have to bring in the right guys. Talent is important, but if you bring in guys that ruin your culture, then your team will fall apart like Texas A&M under Jimbo Fisher and other teams that we've seen. I mean, I do think that it can be a bit overblown because, I mean, if you have a guy that's not the best with culture, but he's just so good that, I mean, he's still a net positive of your team. But if you have, 20 guys that are like that are, not really good on the culture of your team, it is going to hurt the team as a whole. So talent's important, but you do need pretty good culture guys as well. And hopefully that is the direction Bama's going in, and it seems like they are. I mean, I think with the amount of recruiting that they're still doing in high school, they're recruiting high school so well that's where I don't think they have to get as many transfer guys. You only have to get a lot of transfer guys if you're not recruiting high school well, and Bama seems to still be doing great in that. So,
agreed.
Well, and two, I'll give you a good example of that. I have a friend. I have a buddy of mine who's got some connections in Tuscaloosa. I live in this. Jackson, I believe you live in Alabama, don't you?
I do.
And then I don't know about you, Jeffrey, but I have some people that are connected to Tuscaloosa, and they told me, and this is a good source that my friend has up there in Tuscaloosa, but he was telling me that there was a year, I think it was 2017, when Saban was signing that class, and there was a kid who was the number 1 or 2 ranked kid in the country at that time, and Saban passed on him because he didn't feel like he fit the culture, and there was some problems there, and we ended up seeing that kid ended up transferring. It was a running back, and he ended up going to Ole Miss at some point. No, he went to Evans, I think was his last name, and but Saban passed on him when everybody else in the country, was really high on him, because of the culture fit. And so I think that's a good example of, being selective of who you bring in. And like you just said, we're recruiting high schools so well that you don't have to lean on the portal as much. Um, and like you said a minute ago about Dabo, not taking from the portal is kind of insane, because you're going to have years where you're going to need, like right now we need a safety. I mean, that's when I think the biggest need in the portal is a safety, because I think we're down on those numbers. But um, it's just things like that I think that Kalen has done so well. Even though we didn't get the results that we wanted in year 1, losing to Oklahoma is inexcusable. Losing to Vanderbilt, I think it was a bad loss, but I don't think it turned out to be as bad of a loss as we thought it was when it initially happened. So,
Exactly. But still,
It was
but
Zach Evans who you were talking about. I
yeah,
remember him. He was committed to Georgia too. Like Bama was recruiting, but he was committed to Georgia. And when he got suspended from his state championship game in his last high school game, and then Georgia released him like his national letter intent, like you're not coming here, and he went to TCU. Yeah, and then he played at Ole Miss for brief. Yeah, I remember. And he's not really doing all that much. So yeah, I mean sometimes guys that have a lot of talent that are rated very highly, but if they have culture problems or like they're getting into trouble, that's going to hurt their careers too. Like they're not focused, they're not putting football first, and it really.
remember Antonio Alfano?
Mhm.
Remember Antonio Alfano from New Jersey? He went to Alabama and then he didn't make it through spring practice,
Mhm.
and it was a culture issue.
Yep.
And you just have to bring. So, I mean, so let me ask you this: what would y'all grade Kalen DeBoer's first year?
Didn't you say Jackson? You said it was like a B or B minus. What did you say?
it was like a B minus for me.
I go with B minus. I almost because I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Me and Jackson did, and I was hovering between C plus and B minus, but I ended up going B minus barely because I mean it is his first year.
Yeah.
But I mean the Oklahoma game just really is frustrating. Like for me, like going 9-3, it wasn't so much as going 9-3, it was how they went 9-3. I mean, like if they had a loss to Tennessee, Georgia, and LSU all close or something like that, it would have looked a little. Or South Carolina, I guess, would be better since LSU had the worst year. It'd have been a little bit different, but it's because like they had the Vandy loss and then they really sucked against Oklahoma out of the blue. But I would still give him a B minus because it was his first year. If they go 9-3 again and have a couple more bad losses, then probably would be a little worse. But B minus.
I said B plus, and let me tell you
Mhm.
why I gave him a B plus. It's because of his recruiting. If he
Mhm.
wasn't recruiting as well, I would say B or B minus. But I think with him recruiting as well as he is in the high school, I think that gives him a little bit of a higher grade there. Um,
Mhm.
but I mean, some people. I mean, I don't know if y'all seen it. I mean, some people said, "Oh, what are we doing with this guy? Why do we even hire him?" I mean, you got to give the guy time, and I think um, we've seen it at times this year when he would get very animated on the sideline like Saban did, and I liked it when he felt like his players were had a bad call, he would go to bat for them. And so I feel like this guy really, really cares about our players, and so um, that's my thing with him is just seeing not so much. I mean, it is the results on the field, but it also is seeing how passionate he is about the Alabama program. That makes me think that know that we got the right guy.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that. I mean, I do think like you said, when you take recruiting into account, yeah, that can definitely bump it to a B or a B plus. Me and Jackson we're looking at it more from on the field. But yeah, I agree. If you include the recruiting, it's better than a B minus because the recruiting's still fantastic. People are like the recruiting's dropped off. I'm like, I'm not seeing that. It's still
Yeah, and
right
the
at the
recruiting's
top.
still the same.
Yeah,
Like
it's not worse. I
I've
mean,
been
we're
here.
number 2 instead of number 1. It's like right there.
Yeah, it's like I've heard like some people goes like, and you could tell like whether they watch like college football or not, or a lot of it. They're like nobody wants to go to Alabama. Well, that's where you're wrong. We're the number 2 class in the nation. We're fine. Like it's not the Alabamas, the Michigans, and the Ohio States you need to worry about. It's the lower level schools in the Power Four that you got to worry about.
Yeah, and I like your point too, Hunter, about him being animated on the sidelines because, yeah, I saw tons of games where, like, a certain play, he would just lose it. And, like, if he felt that it was, an unfair call or if one of the players, didn't do something that he really, necessarily liked or whatever, like, he would really rip into it. Like, he was very animated. And I think that is a good trait to have. You don't want to see, like Brian Kelly when things get out of hand and he just looks deer in the headlight. Like he's got no answer. He's just sitting there. Like, people are making fun of him online. Like Kalen DeBoer was engaged all the way through. And I mean, and people are like, we shouldn't have hired this guy. I mean, who else were you going to get? Mike Norvell? I mean, we might have dodged a bullet there.
Agreed.
I will defend Norvell because so let me kind of give you a little bit of context. So I live in Alabama. I live about an hour from Panama City Beach. I live close to Dothan, and I ended up going to high school in Florida. That's where my mom lives, and all my buddies were Florida State fans. So I ended up going to a lot of Florida State games as a result of that. So Florida State's kind of like my second team. If I said I had a second team, and I don't think that this whole thing with Norvell is his fault.
No, I don't either.
And I don't think this all on him. Actually, I was hoping when I heard the result that the announcement that Saban was retiring, I was like, go give Mike Norvell a blank check and tell him to come to Tuscaloosa. That's who I wanted initially when it was when it first happened. Now, in hindsight, I'm so glad that we got Kalen.
Yes.
In hindsight, but initially Norvell was the guy that I wanted. But I think there's some things that are out of Mike Norvell's control that has contributed to this year's results. And I think in the next couple of years you'll see a much better improved Florida State. But I just had to throw that in there because a lot of people like to poo-poo on him, but I think a lot of this is out of Norvell's control.
Well, and it's like Jeffrey said, it's usually all about perspective, because like 1 minute, Neil Brown was the most beloved guy in West Virginia. Next minute was he's the most hated man in West Virginia. Same thing with Florida State. He's the most beloved man in Florida State. Now, a lot of people are like, they should fire this guy. Why would we give him an extension? This, that, and the other. Which, if Florida State has a really good season in 2025, we can definitely see perspective changing all over again.
Oh, yeah, I mean, perception just changes so quickly anywhere. I mean, one game, like Kalen DeBoer, when they beat Georgia, he's fantastic, great successor for Saban, then lose to Vandy, and it's like, he sucks, So, I mean, the thing with Mike Norvell is honestly, I'm not going to lie, I kind of was – I wouldn't say I favored Norvell, but it was for me with Norvell or DeBoer. I was when Saban retired, I was like, I want either of them. And a big reason for me is because my second favorite team behind Alabama in football, well, it's kind of a tie, but I like Carolina because I do live in North Carolina. But Indiana is my second favorite team basically in college football for whatever reason. I've always just liked an underdog story. I've been watching them for a decade when they sucked. But the thing is that when I saw Kalen DeBoer at Indiana as their offensive coordinator, and he actually made Indiana football decent back in 2019 with Penix, I'm like, yeah, this dude's going to be a star. And then he goes to Fresno, goes to Washington. And I'm like, okay, so I liked him. And then Norvell, I mean, what he did at Florida State, how bad that they were with Taggart and, the end of Jimbo, it just was rough. Like, yeah, I mean, they turned it around with Travis. And I'm like, I like Norvell too. So I was going between the two. And for a moment there, I was almost leaning Norvell, but then I flipped back to DeBoer, and then they ended up hiring DeBoer. But the thing is like, I really did like Mike Norvell, and I still do. I think that he is solid overall. But, man, there's so, like you said, I mean, there's a lot of problems with Florida State's university right now. It's not just at the coaching level. It's just a mess. They got a lot to fix. But like Ralph Wolf has said, they're killing it in the portal. But see, that's the thing. Like, they did good in the portal the 2 years in 22 and 23. Keon Coleman, Travis, like a lot of guys. And then after that, they had a bad year in the portal with DJ and a lot of terrible additions. They have to hit it again in the portal, but that's where the portal can be hit or miss. I still think Norvell's pretty solid, though. But like I said, in hindsight, I'm glad they went with DeBoer.
I think Mike Norvell needs to get like some advice from Pat Riley how to motivate his team. Because like I keep thinking about where it was like I was watching like Riley was talking to the Lakers where he's like, you know why we didn't win? Because of this crap. You're popping off against one another. This whole team's falling apart. I think Norvell needs to have that talk with his Florida State team. Just let them know, hey, you know why we were falling apart in 2024? Because of this horse dung. We're popping off about the ACC and how we're going to leave it. We're going to leave it. And then 5 minutes later, we let it affect our play. We can't be living on what could have been, what should have been, what would have been. Because you know what? It is what it is. You can't go back to the past. The future starts now. That's the motto that Florida State's going to have to make sure they live in for 2025 and beyond. Is the future starts now.
Well, so another thing that I want to kind of talk about for a minute. So going, so I'll just two things. So one on the bowl game, my score prediction is it's going to be 34-10. And then so kind of gearing away from that a little bit. What do y'all think is it going to be the situation at quarterback going into next year? And what are you expecting out of this Kalen DeBoer team in year 2?
I would expect to go with either Keelan Russell or Ty Simpson for our quarterback situation for 2025. And anything that's better than 2024. I would like for there to be a 10-2 season or 11-1 year. I would love to win the SEC for 2025, but we'll wait and see. I mean, I like our non-conference schedule because it's a little better, and plus, the naysayers won't say that we like it easy.
Oh, and
Yeah,
for the
for
love of
me,
God, please, can we please get rid of Nick Sheridan as OC? Please.
Nick Sheridan is not a good offensive coordinator. He sucked at Indiana. He's a
We
better tight
need,
ends coach.
yeah, we
I
need a
will say
better
though
OC.
about the quarterback situation is that I don't really want Keelan Russell to start as a freshman. I mean, he could be ready because he's talented, he's fantastic and all of that, but I think it would be better for him to sit as a freshman. I mean, he could come in and play great like Lagway did. I mean, it could happen. But the thing is, you just don't want to put that much pressure on a guy like that. Even like Tua didn't play immediately, and then he came in the championship game and killed it. But it's like I don't know about putting him in immediately. Again, I could be wrong. He could come in and be great and all that. But there's so much pressure at the quarterback position at a program like Alabama. It would be tough to put it on a kid like that. And then you look at Ty Simpson. He hasn't really shown us anything. Every time he's come in, he hasn't done well. That doesn't mean he can't be good. But I'm not really confident in Ty Simpson. If Milroe's gone, which seems that's the case, we're not 100% sure, though. But if he is, I think that Bama should still get a portal guy. I do think they should get a portal guy who has 1 year of eligibility left to compete with Ty Simpson and Keelan Russell for the job, if possible. If it's not possible, because the most transfer quarterbacks want to start. They want to be like, hey, I'm guaranteed to be the starting quarterback. And if I'm not guaranteed to be the starting quarterback, I'm not going to do it. But if they can get a guy that can compete for Simpson and make him better and make Keelan Russell better, I think that would be the best thing to do. But I would probably go with Keelan Russell over Ty Simpson, but just from what I've seen from Ty Simpson, but we don't know what Keelan Russell is going to do either. But I just think it would be better to get at least one more guy to compete with him because you just don't want to put it all on a freshman who has ever played and on another guy that really hasn't done much when he's been in.
Well, we can't beat Diego Pavia, so let's get him.
Well, here's why I disagree with that.
Okay.
And because I think if we bring in a transfer, that's going to push Austin Mack out. And if you watch Austin Mack when he got into the game this year and then in the spring game, he looked really good. And there's a reason that Kalen bought him over from Washington. And so I think if you bring him in, you could trigger him to transfer. And I don't want that to happen because I do see some potential in him, and who knows? Maybe maybe Austin Mack can compete, for a starting role. I mean, there is a reason that the board brought him over. I don't think it was just for him to just sit for 2 years.
Okay.
And I think Keelan, like you said, probably needs to sit and learn the system and get familiar with the system. But I mean, let's not rule out Austin Max.
There we go.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, sometimes it's easy to forget a guy like him, but yeah, you definitely don't. I mean, that's true. I just you just don't want to be put in a situation though where you got 3 guys and none of them pan, and then people are going to be, because what's going to happen is if that does happen, where Simpson doesn't do anything, Mac doesn't do anything, Keelan Russell's not ready, and then what happens? DeBoer doesn't know what he's doing. He should have brought in a transfer. That's why
And
it's
our
so
buddy,
tough to juggle this stuff now. It is hard. It is so hard to juggle all this because you have to make everybody happy. You have to keep everybody happy. But if you don't bring in an extra guy just to be safe, then people are going to throw that back into Bower for not bringing in a transfer if those guys don't work out. But I do agree with you, though. I mean, hopefully you can just go with those guys and one of them ends up playing great. We don't have to worry about it. But it just,
Well, I mean,
you
we
always
got
want to be
two.
safe and sorry. But yeah, I get your point, though.
I mean, we got 2 5-star guys. They should be able to, to be ready by that time. And I think it's not so much that Ty hasn't done much. I think that in situations where he's been in the game, he hasn't had time to get comfortable. And I think once he gets comfortable and gets his wits about him, I think he could be a great starter. And there's a difference between going in the middle of a game when the game plan is not built around you, versus hey, he going into the season knowing he's the starting guy and has time to process that, and they can build a game plan around him. Do it. So yeah, but I see what you're saying. And Boston College, they got Dylan Lonergan to transfer to Boston College, and I'm rooting for that kid because I really like Dylan Lonergan. Watching him play when we did get to see him, and I hope that kid does great things because I kind of was hoping he would stick around.
yeah.
See, this is what Ralph Wolf's saying right here, and I agree with you. With the 5-star guys, they should be ready. But this is what he says. It turns into the Michigan QB situation. That's what happens. A bunch of, in his case, 4 stars, but we got 5 stars. But it's kind of the same thing. They never played. None of them worked out. They all sucked. All of them. And think about it. If Michigan had Cam Ward or any highly rated, even Curtis Rourke, like anybody from the portal, Michigan is in the college football playoff this year. They're in the college football playoff. And they're not. They sucked this year overall, except for beating Ohio State because their quarterback situation was hot mess. It was garbage. None of them did anything. Davis Warren sucked. Jack Tuttle sucked. Alex Orji was terrible. And they had another guy that I forgot his name that never played, but he transferred just now. I mean, like they had 4 guys and none of them did anything. And that's what I just don't want that to happen to Bama. I think obviously Bama's quarterbacks are better than Michigan's. I think they're way better. But
If this,
Denegal. Yeah, I remember him, Jaden Denegal. But you just don't want that to happen with Bama because if it does, like you're in week 5 of the season and we've seen Keelan Russell, Mack, and Simpson, and they're all horrible. Then people are going to be going for DeBoer's head. And is that fair? No, it's not, because he's just going with those guys because, like you said, you bring in a transfer, then one of those guys is out. It's a tough thing to juggle. I mean, like I said, the best case scenario is just one of those guys pans out. But like I said, only time will tell.
Well, let me paint the question this way. What if it was the same situation, but it was Saban as head coach, and he decided to go with them 3 guys? Would you be more inclined to trust him because he's Nick Saban versus going with DeBoer and going, well, it could not work out? I mean, I think I have enough trust in DeBoer that he knows what he's doing. If he sticks with those 3 guys and doesn't bring in a transfer, he knows what he's looking at. So I mean, that's just where you got to kind of have some little bit of trust, because I don't think if it was Nick Saban, I think we all just would have kind of been blindly just go, oh well, it's Nick, he'll figure it out. He knows what he's doing. So that's the kind of thing. So and that's my kind of thing with that. I get what you're saying. It's a very delicate situation, but I don't want to call. I fear that bringing in a transfer will just cause some unnecessary problems in the quarterback room. But one more question for y'all. before I go, do y'all think we get rid of Nick Sheridan and get a new offensive coordinator? Because I don't know if I could take another year of watching him call the offense.
The problem
I
is
really
that
think I will go
the
insane.
issue is that Nick Sheridan's been with DeBoer for a while. Like I said, they were both at Indiana. When Kalen DeBoer was the offensive coordinator, Nick Sheridan was the tight ends coach. Then Nick Sheridan became Indiana's OC, sucked, and then he goes out to Washington to be the tight ends coach. But then Kalen DeBoer goes to Alabama, and they wanted Grubb. They wanted Ryan Grubb. Didn't get him because he went to the NFL. So then he went with the next best option at the time because he really couldn't get anybody else in Nick Sheridan because he'd had prior experience with him at Indiana and Washington. But Nick Sheridan, again, when he was at Indiana, was not a good offensive coordinator. His play calling is not the best. So the problem is that because he's, I wouldn't say attached. I don't really want to use that word. I don't really know the word I'm looking for. But since they've worked together, I guess quote unquote, for years, there is a chance that he doesn't get fired. But I think that he should, or at least get relegated, like to tight ends coach again. But which I know Alabama already has positions filled in other areas. So I mean, it'd be hard to do that. But if DeBoer doesn't want to let him go, he doesn't need to be the main OC. But
Yeah.
Hey, I would be fine.
Yeah.
I would be fine. I would be fine with relegating him to an analyst role and still paying him as if he was the offensive coordinator.
Yeah,
I'd be fine with that as long as we get as long as we get another offensive coordinator. I mean, there was just so many times this year where I'm sitting there thinking I could call a better game than this, and I'm no college football guru. I mean, there was some situations where it was just obvious we should have ran the ball, and he's trying to pass the ball down the field, or he runs Jalen Milrow 15 times in a game where we know it hadn't worked all game long, and he's still trying to run Milrow. I'm like, what the hell are you doing?
See, the one thing with DeBoer that a lot of people don't quite remember is the fact that you look at his history. I mean, excluding the Sioux Falls stuff, because that's just not really important because it's low level. But when it comes to the Power 5 stuff, when Kalen DeBoer was at Indiana, Indiana had Michael Penix. And then when he goes out to Fresno, they had Jake Haener. Jake Haener was very solid for a group of 5 quarterback. And he had Ryan Grubb at OC. Goes to Washington, he has Penix again. And Ryan Grubb at OC. Then DeBoer goes to Bama. He's inherited Milrow, a quarterback that's not his style of guy. He's not a Haener. He's not a Penix. And he has his worst OC to deal with because he's had Ryan Grubb the whole time, but now Nick Sheridan. That's why he wanted Grubb, but Grubb didn't follow. He went to the NFL. So your point about me trusting DeBoer to choose the quarterback or know what he's doing and deciding whether to bring in a guy or ride with these guys and hope one of them sticks versus Saban, yeah, it is hard to compare DeBoer to Saban because, yeah, with Saban, I mean, you have that track record of him getting it right like every season basically of knowing how to balance and knowing which quarterback to go with. Like when he chose Blake Sims over Coker, which a lot of people debate that, but like he did that year and then, whatever. But it's like you look at DeBoer and it's like he's never really had to choose, right? Because he had Haener already at Fresno. He had Penix at Washington. He brought over from Indiana. This is rare territory for him, actually. So, yeah, I am a little bit concerned until we have proof that he can decide and make a good decision in a situation that's actually very hard. This is not easy. I mean, I wouldn't even know how to pick because some people would just be like, you know what, Keelan Russell, he's the highest rated guy. Let's just go with him. But you throw him out there too early, just ruin his confidence, or you put in Simpson, who we think can be okay, but then he turns out to just be no good. We don't know. So, I mean, your point's absolutely fair. I mean, Kalen DeBoer could absolutely get it right. But, yeah, I mean, we just don't have that experience of him having to make a decision like this like Saban's done so many times in the past.
Well, I got a quick story to tell because you just brought something that triggered it. But I think y'all appreciate this. About a couple months ago, I was at Buffalo Wild Wings in Dothan. And I was just having to go there that night and didn't know about this event at all. But it was an event where somebody was putting on, and Jake Coker was there, and a bunch of Alabama players and a few Auburn players, former Auburn players were there. Well, I got in line. I got up to the bar, and I ordered me a beer. and I'm sitting right there, and I didn't even know Jake Coker was there. Well, he walks up behind me, and he was ordering him another beer. And I said, "Holy shit, it's Jake Coker!" And so I started talking to him, and we sat there and talked for about 15 minutes. And I had to. I was asking him about Nick Saban, and and then asking him about the championship season. When he won the national championship. And I had to confess to him. I was like, "Look, man, when they announced that you were going to be the starter, honestly, man, I had no faith that you were going to be able to get it done." And he started laughing. He said, "You know what? A lot of people," he said, "I don't take any disrespect from that." He said, "Because a lot of people didn't." He said, "But, I put my head down and went to work that season, and knew that we had the players in the team that could get the job done." And he said, Kiffin worked with me, and we were able to, and so it's a funny thing that when you brought up Coker, I just thought of that. But
That's
us
cool.
just sitting there, and we just sat there. I mean, for literally, and he was the nicest guy in the world, and we were just there talking for about 15, 20 minutes, and and I was a senior in high school that year, so back in 2015, so it was a very special year for me to be able to see, Alabama win on my senior year of high school. So, but like you just said, man, it could be, what you don't want to happen is you don't want what's that kid's name? Blake. His first name was Blake, and his 5-star guy didn't
Blake
pan out
Sims.
back in 2016. No,
Blake Barnett.
Blake Barnett, that's right. Yeah, Blake Barnett. We don't hear that much about him these days.
Yeah, he did not pan.
Remember, he played the first half of the USC game back in 2016, and he sucked. And then we put Jalen Hurts in and never looked back.
Yep, I remember it. I mean, he nobody even remembered Barnett after that. I remember that first half.
I hope he's doing all right in life. I mean,
hopefully.
Hey, he went to South Florida, and I think he had a decent, okay.
He had a brother too that played football as well, quarterback.
Yeah,
I remember that.
So I mean,
there we go.
You're right. You don't want that kind of a situation to happen, but I mean, I just trust that our athletic director and along people don't realize this. I think Nick Saban is a lot more connected to that program than people think he is. And I think that, part of the reason why we got DeBoer is because, Saban trusts him. I don't think they would have handed the keys to the program without, getting somebody that Nick Saban built he could trust, to carry on the legacy. And so I'm just going to say, the guy gets paid millions of dollars to do this. So, let's just, trust that, he gets it right. And, if he doesn't, then, we'll have that discussion then. But
exactly.
I'm going to believe in him until he proves me wrong.
Well, and about like when we were choosing who was going to be our next head coach, I remember going on the Big Ten show with Justin Adams from Nebraska at the Voice College Football and Sonny Verma from Illini Cast and Locked On Illini and Bears on Tap, and they asked me point blank, who would be the best candidates in your mind for head coaching position at Alabama? And at that time, I said it was either going to be it for me. I think Alabama should go Kalen DeBoer or go Dan Lanning from Oregon. I don't think we should be doing what we were doing in the 80s, recycling all these former Bear Bryant players and Bear Bryant assistants.
Again, the fact Mike Loxley was a candidate, okay, why was he on the list? I know why.
Jeffrey face froze again, but he will get
was on the list. But no.
Your face.
Yeah, what I was saying, I know why he was on the list, but he should not have been on the list. It was just hilarious.
Great. His record from New Mexico is hell. Matter of fact, it's 3-33.
Yeah, like the fact he got the Maryland job is all saving, man.
Oh, agreed. I mean,
well, like some guys.
I think Maryland is seeing that he's a complete and total disaster. They're like, why do we hire this guy?
To his brother, I mean, Bama bailed him out there. To his brothers, the only reason he was doing anything.
It's like Franklin and Lamar on Grand Theft Auto 5, where Franklin's always having to bail out Lamar.
Well, and think about this too. Some guys are just not meant to be head coaches, and that's no disrespect to them to guys like that, because some guys are just more suited to be just coordinators. I mean, we've seen Ole Miss being pretty good this season, but I tend to think that's the thing that's going to pan out with Lane Kiffin. Uh, um, you know, um, even though he's done good, I just don't see him doing a great long term. I think he's more of just a coordinator guy, and there's no disrespect for that. I think that's how Neil Brown is. I think Neil Brown is more of a coordinator guy, or he's more suited for like a Sun Belt team, like he was. So it's no disrespect to those guys. It's just that some guys are just more suited to be coordinators and not CEOs. To put it that way.
A lot more responsibility.
And if Loxley was to get fired from Maryland and DeVore wanted to bring him in as an offensive coordinator, I'd be fine with that.
I'm fine with Loxley being a coordinator or an assistant or any position as an assistant.
No higher than that.
No head coach position. He's a moron.
Well, the thing is, I like our defensive coordinator. I think he's going to do, even though I got frustrated at times, I could see the progression through this season, and I think next year's defense is going to be a lot better than 2024's defense.
There we go. I can't wait for 2025. I'll tell you this. I'm excited about the season opener against Florida State. And I'm pretty excited about Wisconsin coming over to Tuscaloosa 2 weeks after that. That's going to be pretty cool.
Well, if you're able to, I'm going to try to make the Florida State game at Florida State. My stepdad is a big Florida State fan, so we're going to try to make the game in Tallahassee. So, Jackson, if you're able to make it, we should meet up if you're able to make it down to Tallahassee for that game.
Well, if I ever go to Tallahassee for that week, I'd be glad to meet you guys. And I'll tell you right now, it's going to be a wild ride for what's going on for the rest of 2024 and what we've got planned for 2025. And I'm excited about 2025. I can't wait to get started on the 2025 season because, as Bruce Arians said, the future is now, and that should be the tagline. I don't think that we should be sitting there getting upset about what could have been, what should have been, what would have been this year, because you know what? We got left out in favor of SMU. We did. We got left out, but we're focusing on the ReliaQuest Bowl. And after that, we got 2025 right in front of our eyes. We're going to make it to the playoffs for 2025, and we're going to win it all for 2025.
Yeah, hopefully this season will, propel and encourage,
it's
Alabama
like a 2024
to have a better season next year. I mean, this wasn't a horrible first season. I mean, obviously it would have been better to make the 12-team playoff, but I mean, as long as this is a season to build upon and they do better next year, then I think that's good enough,
Great.
I think I got a better. I think I got a better tagline than that.
Okay.
Not that yours is bad or anything, but I think the mentality needs to be a one-game season.
Mm-hmm.
And your next game is your season, and you focus on that game. And
you're trying to go 1-0. That's the mindset.
Yeah.
Yes.
As long as we can keep that mindset, even in this Michigan game. I mean, my thing, I don't think we're having a lot of opt-outs at Alabama, but the thing that I hate about players who opt out of bowl games is that, one, I think it makes you look bad because I don't think that it doesn't make you look like a team player at all.
You're quitting on your team.
Just you just like, and Nick Saban says it. I've heard him say this several times on ESPN. He's saying, here's a chance for you to make yourself more valuable in the draft if that's what you're trying to do, and you're just only hurting your reputation by sitting out. And
I mean, you could have a breakout game in the bowl and look better than you ever did, like, and maybe move up around. I agree. I mean, you could also get hurt and ruin your draft stock too. But I mean, yeah, just for me, it's the quitting aspect. I don't like the quitting aspect. It's just like you played all season for your team, like Michigan. Like, you played all season, you beat Ohio State, it's great. You're 7-5, but then you just, none of them are playing. So it's like, okay, I mean, like, what's the point of playing all year? Like you just, your reward is the bowl game, and you're not even playing it. I know why, because you don't want to get hurt, you don't want to lose money, but to me, it does look bad. It's terrible.
Jalen Waddle is the perfect example of that because he played hurt in a playoff game. Played hurt.
Well, yeah, that was amazing. That was awesome when he did that.
I saw this story the other day, and it involves Coach Prime. And like how Colorado's going to be playing BYU in the Alamo Bowl on Saturday. Well, he's got this little thing set up, and it's called injury insurance for the players that are draft eligible. If they were to get hurt in the Alamo Bowl, they get insurance. Do you think maybe there needs to be something like that for the future for draft eligible players? And better yet, should there be and I think there needs to be like an NIL incentive for the players for the bowl games. Like, if you get paid if you play.
Well, my thing is, I think when players sign, I think there should be stipulations within your signing that says that you have to play in all games played that season. I don't think that you should have the option of opting out.
My thing is that now they're professional athletes. It almost feels. I know they're still amateurs. So many people, they're not. They're like professional athletes. Again. They're playing in college. And the thing is, like, if you're at if you have a regular job, like you're just a regular average citizen, you have a job and you don't work, you don't get paid, right? You don't get paid if you don't go to work. I mean, if you're hurt, like you hurt your leg, you have workers' comp, whatever. But like, if you're not hurt and you just don't show up to work, like I'm not coming into work today, you don't get paid. You just don't get paid. So why do they get paid for not playing? You know what I'm saying? Like, NBA players, load management, they still get paid. Why do they get paid to miss time and they're not even hurt? Like, that's what I don't understand. Like, it should be the exact same. If you don't play and there's nothing wrong with you, then you shouldn't get money. You should lose out on money that you supposedly would have made.
Yeah.
I'm a lot more harsh on this because maybe it's just the way that I was raised, but I was raised that if you start something, you finish it. And and that's just how I am. And I think that you should not have the option of opting out. I mean, it's ridiculous. Because you've seen guys who had played at Alabama and other schools too. I mean, I'm not saying that this is exclusive to Alabama, but like I said a minute ago, that perfect example was Jalen Waddle when he was hurt. And he still wanted to get on the field so bad that they designed plays just for him to have a play or two in that game. One route they made him a decoy, and then the next one they threw him the ball and he caught it and hobbled out of bounds, and he didn't play the rest of the game. But that's how bad he wanted to be on the field for his team. And I just feel like if you're a real team player, that's how you should be. You should be fighting to get on that field no matter what.
I agree. I mean, it's just sad the mindset's changed. I mean, unfortunately, that's money. It blinds people. Unfortunately, it's just frustrating. I mean, I get it. You got to think about what's best for you. But I mean, a lot of
And
time what's
those
best
around
is for you
you.
just to play. You know, you got to think about others too. You know, like you said, it's not just yourself; it's your team. You're on a team.
Agree.
But I mean, that's why you've seen transfer players are bolting, you know, to other programs if they don't like something, like or coach or not a playing. It's just a different culture now, and unfortunately, players just don't have that same mindset. Some do, but a lot don't, and it is unfortunate. But
yeah. Well, Hunter, before you go, what magic you got going on this week, man?
I'm sorry, you broke up.
What magic have you got going on your adventures this week?
I'm actually in Santa Rosa Beach with my family. We are down here for a little short vacation.
that's awesome.
There you go. Living in the sunlight. There you go. Well, I tell you this, don't be a stranger, man. You're welcome to call back in anytime every Thursday on the Alabama Call-In Show. Thank you for calling in, man.
Man, roll tide. Talk to y'all later.
Roll Tide, Hunter.
Hunter.
And we got one more call, and we're just gonna do it real quick tonight because it's getting a little late. How you doing tonight, good buddy? Austin?
Doing pretty good. I had to call in to set you two straight. Alabama
Okay.
stinks, and Michigan's going to curb stomp you. There. I'm good. No, I'm just messing with y'all. How are you all?
Oh, we're doing great,
Merry
man.
Christmas, Austin.
Merry Christmas. I have to. I'm a jokester. But in all seriousness, though, no, Merry Christmas to y'all, too.
There we
And
go.
how are y'all feeling about the bowl game? Now we're this close.
I'm loving it because we get a shot at revenge.
Yeah, I think that the more like the days go by, I mean, I think it's more likely Bama wins. I mean, Michigan's kind of setting themselves up for failure with all the opt outs that they have, and Bama is not having as bad of an opt out issue as Michigan. I think both teams fully healthy. I think that it would be a much more interesting game on paper, but I do think that unfortunately, with Michigan's opt-out situation, Bama should win, decently well. If they don't, then it probably means that Bama's effort wasn't that good. But I expect them to at least, show up in the game, though.
Well, one thing I've learned: never take any game that you step on the field for granted.
I'm not. Absolutely not.
I learned that the hard way last year because I thought we were going to beat USC, and we did not. We got our butts handed to us on a silver platter. Do not make the mistake and do that to Michigan. I'm telling you all.
Oh, we won't.
Yeah, and I mean, so many games this year we've seen where teams were heavily favored. I mean, the Bama Vandy game, the Bama Oklahoma game, like Louisville. I don't know what happened against Stanford. I don't understand it. The rest of the season, Louisville played like a fringe top 20 team, and then that game, that Stanford game, doesn't make any sense. I mean, like, you can't take any opponent for granted. I agree.
Because go ahead, Jackson. No, go ahead, Jackson.
Before you finish your point, I'll ask about the prediction and your keys to victory on Alabama, Michigan. But finish what you were saying.
I was just going to say it just goes to show any given Saturday. But go ahead, Jackson.
There we go. Any given Saturday. But what's your take on the ReliaQuest Bowl and what do you think needs to happen for Alabama to win?
So originally, when we made our predictions, I said Alabama needs to show up. That's number one. If Alabama plays like they want to be there, Alabama should win this game by 2 or 3 touchdowns. Because I've said this to you all, and I've said it to anybody that'll listen. Alabama is a team on paper with talent could have won the whole thing this year. That's how good they are.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that they played on the field at times, they don't look like a national championship team. Like you just mentioned, Jeffrey, i.e. Vanderbilt. Perfect example. Or Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Alabama on paper was definitely a top 10 team. I mean, they have the talent. They still do. They're still recruiting very well, but they didn't play consistently like they did under Nick Saban. This was definitely a different step in the wrong direction in that aspect that I hope Kalen DeBoer can get fixed next year. Because you can't have games like that against middling opponents. I don't care if people say Oklahoma was an 8-4 team masquerading as a 6-6. I don't care. That was a terrible game. Bama sucked in that game. I mean, the same team that beat Georgia should not be going out there and losing to a team in Oklahoma by 21, a team that LSU destroyed, and Alabama destroyed LSU. It was just lack of effort. We saw when Alabama played Kansas State in that bowl game a couple years ago when they missed the playoffs, that if Alabama wants to show up, they can just blow an inferior opponent off the field. Kansas State got destroyed in that game. And I believe that if Alabama has that same level of effort that they showed in that Kansas State game a couple of years ago, they're going to destroy Michigan. The only thing I'm worried about is that Saban's not coaching anymore. Can Kalen DeBoer get that same level of effort out of Alabama in this game? I think Michigan's opt-outs help big time, but I'm still just concerned about that aspect of Kalen DeBoer's coaching with Bama is his ability to get the players to actually try on a regular basis at the highest level.
Mm-hmm. Like, that's my biggest key is Alabama, just show up. Like, show like you want to be there.
I mean, simple as that.
And get the running game going.
Yes. And I've said this all year, and I'm going to say it right here, right now. Jalen Milroe is a top 10 quarterback. I've said that all year to you guys. Mm-hmm. I still think he is, but he's got to have that running game to complement him. Because that's when he's at his best. When you know that you fear his legs, that's when his confidence really gets going. We saw it in the LSU game. His confidence was through the roof because they were like, we can't stop him, and he knows it. And I feel like if he does that, gets the read option going, gets the shovel passes, it gets kind of like that kind of game going for Alabama, they're going to win this game. Mm-hmm. But if he's shaking, getting hit, throwing interceptions, Michigan's going to have a chance.
Absolutely. I mean, to me, the two biggest reasons why Alabama really struggled on offense this year, and part of it has to do with the play calling, but it's because, you saw Alabama try to lean so heavily on Milroe's passing game, and they would abandon his legs so often, to your point, and like get his legs going, get him running downfield, and that gets him more comfortable in the passing game. And the other problem is the fact that, and Ralph has mentioned this tons of times all season, Alabama didn't run the ball very well. And like in all of Bama's seasons that they've had average quarterbacks, right, that they were able to win. I mean, McCarron was not an elite quarterback. He was not. He was good. But I mean, you have Mark Ingram. And then you talk about Coker. You had Derrick Henry. You've had Najee Harris. You had so many of these good running backs, and it's like Bama's got some pretty solid running backs, but they didn't utilize the run game that much this year.
Exactly.
If you utilize the run game more, got the run game going, it would take so much pressure off Milroe. They just didn't run the ball that much.
Like LSU, we utilized the run game. Missouri, we utilized the run game. The games where we didn't utilize the running game, we didn't ground and pound against Vanderbilt. We didn't ground and pound against Tennessee. I don't think we grounded and pounded as we should have against South Carolina. We sure as heck didn't ground and pound against Oklahoma.
We did it against Missouri. I mean, but it just wasn't consistent.
Here's my thing I want to say, and this is all very good talking points, but another thing that is concerning is Alabama's secondary. That's another key to this game. I don't know who's going to be back there. I don't know if Malachi Moore, who's the heart and soul of that safety and cornerbacks back there, but if he's not playing, I really want to see what your young guys will bring. Wow. Because there's been times this year where we've all seen it, where they have gotten burned bad. Georgia, Carson Beck burned them a couple times because they got caught looking. Now, Michigan, you might not have to worry about that. But But in the SEC, you got to worry about that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Ralph Wolf said the same thing. Like, definitely fortunate that Michigan's quarterbacks this year were not good. So, Bama's secondary, that absolutely, to your point, Austin, was a bit of a weakness. Not going to have to really deal with that against Michigan. But next season, it's got to be better. I mean, the thing is against Georgia, I thought the young secondary guys did pretty well. honestly. I thought they weren't bad. Like literally the game-winning play was a pick on Carson Beck at the end from a freshman safety. Or a freshman corner, or whatever. So like that was really good. But like the rest of the team, it was not consistent. There were other games where they just got burned. And I mean, the thing that really just killed me about the Oklahoma game, obviously Milroe's pick sixes and stuff, that was ridiculous. But I mean, they let Jackson Arnold run all over the place. Like Bama used to never give up rushing yards like that to an opposing team's QB, let alone their running back. So as a whole, the team just needs to be more consistent. That's the problem. It just needs to be more consistent, game in and game out, like it was under Nick Saban. If Kalen DeBoer can get there, then they have enough talent to still be a title contender. It's not like they've fallen off like Clemson. It's not the case.
Go for it, Jack.
So what's your score prediction for Alabama, Michigan, Austin? What's your score for that game?
So this is going to lead into my score. So, Jeffrey, to your point, talking about y'all's inconsistencies and keys to these games, Jalen Milroe, love him or hate him, I'll say this. He has shown times throughout the year and even last year brilliance as a passer. Obviously, the Auburn game, that's going to be like played in highlight clips everywhere. And that's one of the things he's really good at, improvising outside the pocket. But then he has those uh-oh moments where he tries to be Patrick Mahomes and do something stupid, and then it turns into a pick six. That's where I think this game's going to be won. Because if Jalen Milroe tries to be Superman and try to throw passes like sidearm or try to make something that isn't there, Michigan is going to prey on that. They're going to turn that into points because they'll run it back. We've seen it happen. But if Jalen Milroe is out there slinging it and hitting everyone precise on the money, Bama's going to win this game. But as far as my score, may shock you, I got Alabama 31-17.
That's fair. I mean, what was my score, Jackson? I did not have it 31-13. Yeah. So me and Austin are like right on the same page. I mean, pretty much.
28-17.
Yeah, like we're all like right in the same neighborhood. We're thinking
Yeah, I put myself on. Yeah, I put myself on silent because it was like I was typing Austin's prediction in the chat with my new laptop. So it's like I'm not paying attention. I'm just making sure I get it all typed out.
And I want to say this too. A couple more things before we go for the night is that I want to bring up to you guys is, this controversy surrounding Jalen Milroe. I want to get y'all's thoughts on it now that I can actually speak to you instead of trying to type it.
Okay.
What's the percentage he comes back next year?
Not a chance. Like 15%.
20. If you had asked me that a couple of weeks ago, I would have said more. But I mean, not really any signs are indicating that he will. I think I still a little bit higher than Jackson on it. There's a chance, but I don't know.
I may surprise you. I'm 45% that he'll be back. Because I think Brian Williams, I feel like they were just starting to get it together, and I feel like they're making a friendship, and I feel like they connect so well on the football field. They have that chemistry. I feel like Milroe is going to run it back one more year with him, see if they can't get to the playoffs and make some magic. I have a feeling that might be why he wants to come back, if he does.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely possible. I mean, Milroe does kind of strike me as a guy that would want to, come back and, make the playoffs, try to, do what they couldn't do this year. I do agree with David's point, though. It speaks of how weak of a quarterback class it is that he's leaving early. I mean, that's the thing. When you're kind of like on that fringe, like right now, Milroe's been hovering around third round, fourth round, all that kind of stuff. And sometimes it's best to go in and go because, like, if he comes back next year and the quarterback class is better, then he's going to probably get drafted even lower unless he has a really good season. So it might be best for him to go in and leave now. But, I mean, I agree with you that there is a chance. There is a chance. I think people that there's no chance. You know, I wouldn't say that they're wrong, but there's a chance. I just don't think it's a good chance. I mean, it probably would be better for him to go in and leave. I mean, it's close. It's just you look at the weak quarterback class versus he comes back. Can he really grow his stock? I mean, because he's been so inconsistent for so long that a lot of people are just going to look at it that it is what it is. And it's like a lot more tape that he's got in college is going to expose more weaknesses. So I don't know. It's just it's a 50-50 thing on paper, but I do think it's more 80-20 that he leaves. But you could be right. I do think there is a chance he comes back, but it's not.
Well, and the thing too is, and I know Jackson and Johnny have mentioned it on their show, and I know you have mentioned it, Jeffrey. Jalen Milroe's ceiling is really high. We've seen what his ceiling is. It's really high. He's arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the country when he plays like it. We've seen it. It's not like it's not there. But his low point is really, really low. We've seen his lowest point too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things when you look at the tape, it's like, okay, his highest point, he's a top 5 draft pick in a lot of people's eyes. His lowest point, late 4th round, early 5th maybe. So the question is, if you're an NFL team and you're looking at it and you're like evaluating him, how do you evaluate all that? Because he doesn't meet in the middle. He's either really high one week or he's really low. Mm-hmm. Like, how do you evaluate that?
And see, the problem is with a player like that, and this works more for basketball, that we've seen guys that have, high, ceiling, low floor. It's better for them to leave earlier because you have less tape. You have less, film to look at the weaknesses. So you take a guy that has that high ceiling. And then if they don't pan, they don't pan. But if that guy stays in college for several seasons and his ceiling is still pretty high, but that floor just keeps showing itself, then that guy's not going to get drafted anymore. It's different in football because I feel like they don't really do that as much, where like if you stay in college for a long time, like your draft stock's going to get hurt. Like Bo Nix, he was really old last year for a college player, but he still got drafted high. But the thing is that with a guy like Milroe, though, since he's been so high ceiling, low floor for so long and it hasn't changed, and that floor isn't getting any, better, and the ceiling's not really getting any higher, he's just kind of is what he is. He shows you that dash of really good with that dash of really bad, and it just keeps going on and on and on year over year. It gives, again, more tape for the NFL to be like, yeah, he is what he is. He's never going to be better. So it's like for him, it probably would be better to go now instead of having another year of tape where he doesn't really improve on the things he needs to get better at, and maybe showcases some more of the ugly moments that he has. I mean, because I'm normally a believer in if you got flaws, you come back and get better. But I mean, he almost was better with Saban than he was this year. And like I said, I don't think it's a situation for him where he transfers somewhere. It's going to be like Hurts where it works out. He doesn't need to transfer, but if he comes back into the year at Bama, he's in a system that doesn't even fit him very well with DeBoer. He doesn't really run an offense tailored around him, so it's just kind of a messed up situation. And someone said, there's a chance that he doesn't even start next year because of all the talent that has behind. Ralph Wolf said that. I don't agree with that. If Milroe came back, he'd start. But there's just a lot of factors for why I think he should go, even though I'm normally a believer in a guy coming back. But I don't know.
Well, we'll definitely wait and see what happens. But Austin, what have you got going on your channel?
I'll say this real quick, though, good buddy Jackson. Right. To make my last point on that, is like you said, I think if Milroe comes back and he's not the starter, then something's really wrong within your all's organization. Y'all need to take a look in the mirror. Because if Ty Simpson or someone else beats him out after being there 3 years, that's a big rut-row raggy. That's all I got to say with that. But go ahead, though, Jackson. What were you saying?
I was saying, what magic have you got going on your channel and on X this week?
Well, X, I just rant and rave about my teams. And you could see my rant and raving about the Denver Nuggets, how they lost on Christmas. Ruined my Christmas, guys. Now, but in all seriousness though, this week, of course, tomorrow night, me and the person above me, not Jeffrey, Jackson, we will be doing our CFP quarterfinal predictions on both mine and his channel tomorrow night on a Friday night. So come hang. We're going to make some predictions. We're going to talk some football, and we may even take some calls. You never know. You never know. Because Jackson, he's a little crazy, y'all, but we love him for it. And Jeffrey, too. Jeffrey's real crazy. I mean, he's an Indiana fan. He has to be.
Thanks for that, Austin. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Here we go. And Godfather, we will definitely see you next week for sure.
Appreciate you being here, Godfather. Appreciate everybody for being here. It was a great show tonight. And
appreciate you all
for coming on, Austin, as well. Always a blast talking to you, about college football, Alabama, whatever, all that kind of stuff.
There we go. It's always good to talk with you, Austin. We will definitely see you later. But yeah, you can definitely hang out in the back room for a little bit in the StreamYard, because we've got some promos we got to do to end this little puppy dog. We'll be seeing you, man. Go. And speaking of promos, speak of the devil, we got Alabama with the Voice College Football YouTube memberships. And for $2.99 a month, you can become a Crimson Faithful member, where you will become a Crimson Faithful member by getting a loyalty badge next to your name and in the comments and in the live chat, and custom emoji using the comments in the live chat, and you get a member shout out. And for $4.99 a month, you can become a Saban Disciple, where you will get priority replies to comments and access to a monthly hangout from yours truly and Johnny Burtz and Jeffrey at Only Talk Sports. And you can become a Bear Bryant legend by connecting on social media with us and giving out content requests of any kind for $9.99 a month, where neither rain nor sleet nor snow or bad internet stop us from fulfilling your content requests. And by golly, we're going to fulfill them all. Like Ash Ketchum, we catch them all. Well, in this case, we catch them all and we fill them all.
Man, that was a banger theme song, man.
Oh, man. I've been getting a kick out watching it on Netflix lately.
Dude, I mean, like, that first theme song is it's goated, man. Like, any redo of the Pokemon theme song is terrible. Like, come on.
I know, right? Well, I mean, OGs remember Pikachu loved Misty way more than Ash.
Oh, so man.
There we go. And of course, if you love top-notch discussion, debate, and analysis with no off-season, come on into the Voice College Football Ads account, where you can get top-notch coverage in all college football. Oh, there's our buddy Tim Prangley's doing the USC College Show with Fight On Preston. Dylan Edwards making magic today for Kansas State. And oh my God, overtime magic with Pitt Toledo. Mr. Krabs giving out
day 43. Give it up for day 43.
There we go. And a big old boom. There we go. And, just bringing out some magic for Alabama with the Voice of College Football. And, of course, there's no post-game show on Saturday for, well, obvious reasons. So we've got, and Monday will be the next edition of Crimson Tide Live, where it's likely going to be a pregame analysis on Alabama, Michigan. And basically, we're still kind of figuring out the subjects. Like, there's going to be more recruiting topics, and unless there's going to be like some parts that are kind of like a new rules segment on Real Time with Bill Maher, I guess. But of course, there's a Thursday night, another edition of the Call-In Show. Tuesday, after the conclusion of Alabama Michigan's matchup in the ReliaQuest Bowl, Johnny and I will give you our post-game analysis. We won't keep you too long because you got other games and you got other New Year's events, of course. So we'll make sure that. And we're 18 subs away from the magic number 2,500. But We got to beat that Texas channel to 3,000 subs. We have got to show the Texas channel who's really the boss of the SEC. And then on our next mission is we got to catch up to Oklahoma. And of course, shop on Amazon using the link to support the voice of college football. You don't need to buy the product displayed, and it doesn't cost you a penny. You get the same shopping experience. And with that being said, we wish y'all a good night and to sleep well. Stay safe, stay warm. It's cold out. Like, comment, subscribe, click on the notification bell so you never miss no video whatsoever. And we will see you soon. And roll tide.
Happy New Year, folks, and roll tide.
Roll tide. There we go.